Can't believe Austin both right now. This is just wild.
Good.
Is he good? I don't know if he's good, but he might be. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the MLB Deeper Dive. Good to be back. I'm Eric Lindquist. Good to see all of you once more. I wasn't on any live shows from Thursday until Tuesday. I was back in South Dakota hanging out with the family. It was a great time. Hadn't been back in 2 years. There was a pandemic thing. I don't know. It's whatever. But hey, I'm back in LA, back in the home setup, and excited to be chatting with you. Oh, and I've got Adam Scher, my buddy over there at Ship My Money DFS. Great to be back here in the just MLB Deeper Dive streets with my guy. How you doing, my dude?
Doing pretty well. Enjoying a nice thunderstorm outside because that started as soon as the show did, which is becoming a fun tradition. But you're kind of burying the lead. You had a good night last night.
I did. I had a Ship My Money-esque night. It was wild. Like I was on planes all morning. I took like an earlier flight to get back and get situated here, and just was like, I got home by 2:00 or so. I'll put my normal lineups in the $4. I won it last week, and so I was like, I've got some good choo-choo going there. Put a couple of lineups in the 15 because wanted to hand build out one in the 111. I had a ticket for that, and that ended up being a pretty good decision. Have you ever hit anything with like 4 or 5 lineups where it was just like, what just happened?
Yeah, back years ago, like before I started max entering. I remember winning the slam on FanDuel with, I think I played one lineup, just like threw it in. People got really mad at me. It was NBA, and I remember I like punted both power forward spots with just like garbage plays, but like I really liked the rest of my lineup, and people got really mad because I hadn't talked up whatever the 2 min salary guys were on like shows, and I was like, if I told you to play these guys, you should like never listen to my content again. But yeah, I did that. My first 100K win was with 3 lineups, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had 100K. Well, I mean, we talked about that when we were in Chicago. It was like a NBA run I went on a couple years ago, but this one was fun because you don't expect it when you build a couple lineups in it. And, I was figuring out what to do like in the 111 more so. And then when I could have signed up for single entry, everything was already filled. So just kind of had to do what I did. And there we go. Worked out well. And I got In-N-Out Burger. So really that's the overall win of the entire night, was getting back from a trip and getting In-N-Out. Did you have that on your trip when you were in LA?
No, I didn't. I've still never had it.
Really? That's egregious. Honestly, all of the great vibes have just been shot in the foot. Don't do that. Hit the like button, though, for everybody else. Hit the subscribe button. I can't say subscribe. We got Tyler Zander over there behind the virtual glass. He's so peachy keen. He's so happy. He's wearing a peach shirt, so it works about perfect. Peachy keen indeed, my friend. But anything you want to talk about? We've got a 9-gamer ahead of us. I didn't really do a whole lot on this 6-gamer on the front end of it. Just slept in, enjoyed life, enjoyed feeling richer than yesterday. But what sticks out to you on this 9-gamer? Because it looks really, really fun tonight.
Yeah, it seems like a pretty fun one. I haven't crunched any lineups yet, but just doing the tournament plays video, it seemed like there's plenty of bad pitching, not a ton of good pitching. And DraftKings actually made the pitchers somewhat expensive today, so that's pretty fun.
Hallelujah, and the Saints be praised. I will say there's still some 2K and super cheap guys. Hi, St. Louis. That was kind of random how that lineup shook out, but I am looking at Scherzer. I'm looking at Rodon. We priced these guys up on both sides. FanDuel, 11.5, 10.7 for Rodon. Pretty wild to think that we don't get to just have these freebies at the top end where we can just jam anybody that we want in terms of pitching. So I think that makes it fun. Do you like these kind of slates more, or do you like kind of the looser pitching pricing?
I prefer slates where you kind of have to make a decision. I think that you can make a case for looser pricing because you still get very constant. Then you get like super high-owned guys, and like it's baseball, so there's still a ton of variance. But like, I prefer when the pricing's tighter. I think that to me it's the most fun when like you have to choose between the best pitching and the best hitting, not like just play them all together. And then if you're a tournament player, don't play any of them and hope that somehow they all fail.
That's kind of why I like this, because it always feels like, oh, okay, all these bats. Think of how many slates we've had where Aaron Judge was like 30% on this season.
Right.
Like it's just absurd. So in cash, still get to Aaron Judge, and it's never a bad thing. So you can still do that, but there are concessions you must make if you want to get up to Scherzer, if you want to get to Rodon, and playing them both together probably going to put you on a lot of the same stacks. But we shall get to it here right now, and we start with the Rays and the Yankees. 3.9 implied runs for the road team. Yankees 4.6, and Corey Kluber going up against Domingo Germán. 4 of his 5 starts have resulted in a loss for the Yankees. Might be nice to have Jordan Montgomery right about now, but as a Twins fan, I'm happy to see them suffer. Let's start with Kluber, though. I know the Yankees have struggled, but I still don't know how I land on any Kluber here in this spot. He's only 1% owned. Do you have any interest for just pure leverage purposes?
No, I think it's really difficult to get there. He's not a bad pitcher, sub 4 xFIP, but only strikes out about 21% of hitters. The Yankees, despite their recent performances, are still a good lineup. No Giancarlo Stanton, which of course waters down the lineup in terms of production, but also takes a strikeout bat away. They did call up Oswaldo Cabrera, who I looked last night because I was talking shit to Gundacker. It was currently there.
As one does.
Yeah. Was currently their number 14 overall prospect. He was excited about him coming up. I don't entirely know why. Steamer projects him for a 182 ISO, 99 WRC plus rest of season. So seems like another decent bat, but overall just a spot where the pricing on Kluber is not particularly friendly at 8,800. The matchup certainly isn't. I have a really hard time wanting to get them.
He's 2K flat. That's the nicest thing I can say about him.
Oh, Cabrera, yeah.
Yeah, Cabrera. I'm looking at everything for him. Just doesn't look all that appealing. Looks like there might be some stolen base upside, but not really. I mean, 10 total.
10 stolen bases at AAA this year.
Okay, so that's decent enough.
40 grade speed according to Fangraphs, so that's weird.
It's not high. All right. Well, just keep
21
in mind.
stolen bases last year, 13 total.
That's what year. There we go. That was more of the sample size I was looking at. So definitely had some more last year. Let's just kind of jump to the other side of this one, because this is really, I think, if you're not going to be playing Rodon and Scherzer, you're going to play one of the two, and I'm very curious to hear who you prefer between the two. But there's going to be some cheapy if you want to get to some of these top stacks, whether it's Montgomery, whether it's Germán, whether it's Reagans, lots of options. Where does Domingo Germán fall into the pecking order for you on DraftKings as an SP2?
I think he's a reasonable SP2 just because of the price at 6,500. The matchup against Tampa Bay is decent. Their active roster has a WRC plus just north of 100, but they are missing several players from their normal starting lineup. Germán's just like a huge question mark, though, because he had injuries. He had the domestic violence issues. So we don't have like any sort of he's thrown like 2,000 total pitches since the start of 2020. So it's kind of tough to know exactly what you're getting, but a 22.5% strikeout percentage against hitters from both sides of the plate over that time. 148 expected ISO to lefties, 212 to righties. This year, only a 9% strikeout percentage against lefties, very limited sample. 24.5% to righties, again, limited sample. But at this price tag, I think, especially on a slate where pitching is pretty weak outside of those guys at the top, I think it makes sense that he's getting 13 or so percent ownership.
Yeah, and G-Man Choi buried to the 6 hole. It's kind of a weird thing to see in this Tampa Bay lineup. Going through some of them, I thought I would be getting to them a little bit more as a contrarian team against Germán. Maybe I do have to just play a little bit more Germán and kind of write it off. I'm concerned by only a 16.5% K percentage for him. As you said, sub 10% against lefties. But some of these lefties, whether it's Peralta, Lau's just freaking good. G-Man Choi buried there a little bit. It's not really... They're not the world's best lefties, so maybe I can get to more of him at 6,500. I can't imagine I want to get to like 25% of him or anything, but I wouldn't be surprised if he showed up in some lineups for me. But how do you feel about Tampa Bay on the contrarian stack end of things?
Yeah, I actually like the way that they look right now, relative to ownership. They have about a 3.5% aggregate ownership projection. We have them with about a 6.5% chance of being the top stack. And they're not cheap, but they're not super expensive either. Brandon Lau and Randy Arozarena are both pretty expensive, and deservedly so. But the rest of this lineup is pretty inexpensive. Yandy Diaz at 4,200, everyone else sub 4K. So I do like getting to the Rays here just because Germán is such a big question mark. Like, he used to be a pitcher that we would roster at much more expensive price tags, but he also hasn't been very good so far this season. So we don't really know what we're getting from him. And I do like the uncertainty there. Plus, you do get the Rays outside of Tropicana going into Yankee Stadium.
This is going to make me sound really ridiculous because, coming off a night where you win 30K, but my biggest problem with Five Guys, everybody, it's so damn expensive. Like, when you go to Five Guys, it's like $25 when you get a meal. Why is it $25 for a burger and fries?
You know how to solve that?
What?
Just don't look at the price.
Is that the Adam Scherer way of life?
Pretty much, yeah.
Very nice. How much?
Yeah.
If you had to pick one fry to save your life, what do you pick to give to the aliens that infest our planet?
I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know. I
It's
mean, like
definitely
McDonald's.
not. So
McDonald's is obviously the first one I think of, but I know there's better.
McDonald's is the taste of your childhood. So
Right.
that's kind of what it is. Like McDonald's fries, it's nostalgia more than it is like quality. In-N-Out can't go in the fry category unless you do like animal fries, and that's just the ensemble of garbage that comes with it. But like, I love In-N-Out burgers. They are just so good. Wendy's fries, absolutely not. You should almost be banned, Evan.
Yeah.
That is bannable.
Chick-fil-A waffle fries are nice.
That's a good call. See, now I like where our head's at. Now this is the momentum we need to talk about some Yankees bats here, because they need some positive momentum, my friend. It's been a rough sledding here against Kluber. As you said, he's a decent, serviceable pitcher, but you are seeing some ownership come in on the usual suspects. You get Benintendi now leading off. You get a 2K guy in the middle of this lineup. You get Josh Donaldson, decent enough at third base, which hasn't been that strong of a position throughout this season. Gleyber Torres continually batting up in the order. I like this Yankee team, but how are you prioritizing them today?
Yeah, I like them too. We have them on DraftKings right now with about a 7% chance of being the top stack, 9% projected ownership. So that has actually come up throughout the day, because when I did my tournament plays video, they were projected to be under-owned. It's kind of a weird spot where like Kluber has just been solid this year. 155 expected ISO to lefties, 148 to righties. It is a negative park shift for him going to Yankee Stadium, but it's much more so like the talent in the Yankees lineup, more so than me saying like, oh, Kluber's somebody I really want to target. Mm-hmm. You have Benintendi back in the leadoff spot at 4K flat. Aaron Judge is on another planet offensively. Torres, Rizzo, Donaldson, like, you have home run upside there. Cabrera at 2K flat with multi-position eligibility. Like when we mentioned him before, it was kind of in the context of like he projects to be league average, but league average at 2K flat batting 6th for the Yankees is pretty appealing. So that's that'll help you offset some of that salary that you're spending on the other guys as well.
Absolutely. Plus, this is a slate where 5 implied total for the Rangers? That's the highest we have. Why not take the juggernaut offense that might be under-owned for a 9-game slate comparatively?
Right. And also the one thing to keep in mind, I'm double checking it now, but yeah, so like the aggregate ownership on the Yankees is kind of misleading too. 21% coming into Aaron Judge. Benintendi at 12, Cabrera at 10 because he's 2K. Everybody else is sub 10%. So even though the Yankees are projected to be over-owned, it is very heavily skewed toward Aaron Judge, who is obviously amazing.
Yeah, and Estevan Florial, another guy, if you're just going to throw him in a stack and call it a day. 2K flat as well, even though by all intents and purposes, I mean, what is he? 300, 375, 500 over 12-game AAA. That's a small sample. Estevan Florial earlier in the season. He's just a dude. I can't imagine he's going to be all that good. Anything else from this game for you, my friend?
Nope.
Cool. We go to Boston, 4.4 implied runs. Pittsburgh on the other side, 3.6. And one of the weirder things of breaking down games the night before, like I do on Lindy's Leans, Likes, and Locks over on the Odd Shopper channel, check it out if you haven't gotten a chance to. I break down every single MLB game the night before from a betting perspective, give you my favorite bets. And Ronzi Contreras getting sent to AAA just basically to put the handcuffs on a 22-year-old was kind of a weird thing, because he can get strikeouts above league average, 23% K rate amongst starters, 1.38 whip, nothing crazy in that regard. Gives up a lot of hard contact here, but I thought this was going to be a pitcher that looked pretty good at the big league level. Kind of weird to see him fall by the wayside, but any shares whatsoever on taking a 1% Ronzi Contreras at 7,800 with me today?
I think it's kind of interesting just from the talent standpoint. Like you said, he wasn't great when he was called up previously with Pittsburgh, but the underlying talent is certainly there. He struck out as a starter this year in the majors, a 21.5% strikeout percentage, walking 10% of hitters, 4.52 xFIP, 1.7 home runs per 9. But this is a very highly regarded pitching prospect. He's shown very good strikeout stuff in the minors. 9 starts at AAA this year, striking out 32.6% of hitters. Zips has him with a 22.3% strikeout percentage going forward. I do get the case that you can make just based on talent level. It's not a great matchup against the Red Sox. They do have Kike Hernandez back, which makes that lineup a little bit better. No idea how he's hitting ninth behind guys like Eric Hosmer, Christian Arroyo, and Reese McGuire, but that's just strange.
Reese McGuire is so good with his 25% hard hit percentage this season.
Yeah, makes absolutely no sense, but does make that lineup a little bit better. But I think it's not a spot that I'm really excited about getting to, but it is just a talented pitcher that's not getting much ownership.
Yeah, it's just a guy that I think from a talent level perspective, 7,800. I think he's going to generate strikeouts at the big league level. Nothing like a 30%. He's not Spencer Strider or anything, but like he's 22. I could see him being a guy who's around a 27, 28% strikeout rate sooner rather than later in the next year or two. Could he spike some upside against this lineup? I mean, if you can get by the top of it, Verdugo's never going to strike out. Hosmer's never going to strike out, but those are also two guys who aren't all that good.
Yeah, I mean, we have him. He's just one of those guys that we talk about where I can't find
this is riveting content. There it is.
I couldn't find him in the top pitcher stool. I thought he was in there, but I found him. He's just way further down than I thought he was going to be. He's just one of those guys where he's going under-owned, and so you can certainly mix him into a lineup here or there, but he's also a low probability guy. We have him with a 5% chance of being top 2. I have Fantasy Cruncher running right now, and I'm getting him at 6 to 7%.
Yep, 10% for me. Yep.
It's a low probability guy, but certainly somebody you can use at low ownership that at least has some talent.
Rich Hill, we're not doing that, right? I mean, Pittsburgh is horrendous. They're very, very bad against lefties, 83 WRC plus, but a 151 ISO on the year. Obviously, they traded away Vogelbach, but he's a lefty. That wouldn't have really mattered here. Rich Hill, he's not a guy that you're possibly going to punt with, is he?
I mean, the matchup's good.
I know, the matchup's fantastic. That's the nicest thing that I can say about it, but overall, 17.8% K percentage, 447 expected slugging. I just strongly prefer Jordan Montgomery to everybody else down there.
Yeah, I agree with that. He's projected for 4% ownership. We have him with a 7% chance of being top 2, which is in line with what I'm currently seeing in my stuff as well. So, he's kind of he's a similar play to Roansy Contreras, just for completely different reasons. For Hill, it's the matchup and the price, and has nothing to do with his ability to throw baseballs. Whereas Contreras, nothing's particularly appealing except his ability to throw baseballs.
Yeah, Roansy Contreras leads us to Boston. Roansy Contreras, a 50.3% hard hit percentage. That ain't it, buddy. But again, you're getting him for the upside game, the strikeouts that can exist there. He walks too many guys over 10%. That lends itself to stacking up against him here in Boston. 9.1% ownership share. But as you said, 1 through 9, I do not want to play McGuire. I understand you can play the catcher there, but I think I might just do other things. Everybody else in that lineup, I think, is viable to be getting to in some capacity. Even Kiki, 4,100, just a completely contrarian option within that stack. Boston, I do like it on the other side. Do you as well?
Yeah, I think that they're getting the ownership that they deserve. It's not like they're really going under-owned, but it's a high upside spot here. Going into Pittsburgh isn't great. It's also only 74 degrees, but he's allowed 1.7 home runs per 9 this year. 263 expected ISO to righties, 174 to lefties. There's a very good chance that Contreras is a good pitcher 1, 2, 3 years from now, but that he's not very good right now. That's entirely possible. Also, he's a Pirates pitcher, so he may just never be good until he gets traded. But that's probably the most likely outcome. But yeah, right now, it's just a very high upside, volatile spot on both sides.
God, that's so true. I feel I don't know. Everywhere else, they're just hey, we know what's wrong with you, and we waited for Pittsburgh to trade you until we told you. So here you go.
Much. They're the Orioles used to be like that, but the Pirates are even worse at this than the Orioles were, I think.
Yeah, it's just wild to me that they could be as inept. But hey, let's talk about them because they are cheap. It's Rich Hill. He's not very good. And in terms of top stack odds, kind of running into the middle of the board. That's the nicest compliment. Well, actually, no, they have the lowest top stack number amongst some of these value stacks, but such is life. Detroit actually a little bit better value. But it's still a team that I'm mixing in, guys. I find it hard that I want to get to a 5-man of them on this kind of a slate. It's Brian Reynolds. It's, without Brian Hayes out there, you can get to a little bit of Castro, but the stack is just unappealing without Brian Hayes. Any Pittsburgh bat that stands out to you, or are you going to get to some 5-mans here?
So you mentioned Brian Reynolds. I agree with that one at 4K. Michael Chavis at 2K flat looks like a pretty good value option. And then Kevin Newman with second base shortstop eligibility, 3,200 leading off seems fine. I think those are the three that stand out. I would expect that either Reynolds or Chavis is the guy I get to the most.
Okay. Anything else from this game?
Nope.
It just is a quickie there. Also a quickie here for you guys. Stokastic tools and content right now. Using promo code MLBDD, you can get 50% off your first week of any weekly package. Yes, you heard me. Any weekly package that you want. Do you guys want to have tools and content? Like for me, literally logged on last night, looked at the top stacks, percentages, looked at some of my favorite pitchers in the top pitchers tool, with the inclusion of Charlie Morton, of course, because that was a must-have in a lot of capacities. But you use these tools and content every single day. And even you, whether it's 1, 2, 3, 5, 150 lineups, doesn't matter how many you're making, you can go through a better process because we have the best tools and content in the industry. Even a prize picks guy like me can go out there and win a DK tournament from time to time. So it is definitely worth the price of admission. 50% off your first week using promo code MLBDD. Doesn't get any easier or better than that. Top pitchers tool, top stacks tool, top batters tool, which is incredible. We have the 1v1 tool. We have so many amazing things that are being updated constantly throughout baseball and coming up for NFL. You want to take advantage of this right now. Don't wait because MLB, before NFL gets here especially, you want to take advantage of when these prize pools are at their biggest for MLB. I truly believe we have the best tools and content out of anybody in the industry for this sport. So stop guessing, start winning. Join us at Stokastic and do it with MLBDD, all caps, put it all together just like that on the screen. 5 letters, easy enough, everybody. Check it out. We go to our third game of the day. We talk Tigers, we talk Guardians, and anytime that you see a righty on the mound facing the Tigers, kind of alarm bells go off. But there is that guy, the hero of the people, if you will, the unsung hero of my lineup yesterday, Kerry Carpenter. Hello from the left side. Maybe really, really good over at a 1 OPS at the minors, both AA and AAA. Comes up back-to-back games with homers. I have no idea if he's going to be good, but I mean, we're seeing a 3 implied total for Detroit. I don't necessarily completely agree with that. They're a terrible lineup. They have a league worst WRC plus against righties, but Cal Quantrill, we got to talk about him. Is he a guy that you're going to land on in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah, he's facing the Tigers, so the answer is typically going to be yes. Projected for 25% ownership.
I know.
11% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, but also a 15% chance of being a top 2 value pitcher. I got him in the optimal at like 20%. So I think that 25% ownership number is reasonable. Like it's probably a little bit high. But yeah, like he's 7K flat. He's facing the Tigers. He's not a great pitcher by any stretch. Only striking out. Wow, he's even worse than I thought.
That's what I'm getting at.
I thought he was like 18.5%, and I couldn't find him. Had to keep going. 16% strikeout percentage, 4.5 xFIP. Like the guy's not good, but he's 7K and facing the Tigers.
There's a lot of pitchers today where I had it on Fangraphs where you have it grouped by 30 and you have to click over to 50 and carry it over because I was like, where the hell is Aller? Where the hell is Reagan's? Oh, on the other page because they have like 13 and 10% strikeout rates.
Yeah.
Oh, it's really brutal. And then, I could just go on my old stomping ground Savant here. Comparing him to Savali from yesterday. Savali, I thought he was like the big fade of yesterday's slate because I thought that it was pretty easy to get up to some pitching and kind of mix around. Sonny Gray had the Kansas City spot. I thought that made some sense. I wish I had more of it than I had, but I was way over on Morton. I think you were way over on Morton too, I believe. If I looked at lineup study a little bit this morning. So
yeah, I was around the field on Savali. I was like 2x on Morton.
Yeah, I had 0 Savali, and I'm probably going to have next to 0 Cal Quantrill again here. And it's not that I don't expect him to maybe be okay, but he's got a 16% K rate. That's a lot different this time around.
Yeah, it's basically just a spot where like I can't say anything about Quantrill that is positive. The best thing I can say, I guess, is that he's allowed a 162 expected ISO to lefties, 160 to righties. That could be worse. But like the strikeout stuff isn't there. It's kind of similar to the Savali spot where I'm going to get to Quantrill. I think he's a good play at this price tag, but I don't hate getting to Detroit either. I think they're actually going a little bit under owned.
Effing Dan Norris. We're not playing him, right?
No.
Globo Jim, shout out.
Oh, I've seen that.
You got a reference from me.
Yeah.
I'm so happy. Nobody makes me bleed my own blood to the floor. That's a good one. I'm actually going to give myself a pat on the back. Tyler, between 1 and 10, what did I get it for that grade for the impression? You're the impression king. 2? A 2? That's inappropriate. You're just we got to turn that frown upside down by the end of the show. That's what I'm here to do. Give you love. Let's talk. Well, I don't really want to talk Tigers bats, but we got to talk one Tigers bat. Are we going back to the well on this Carpenter fellow at 2K flat? Because he worked out pretty well yesterday.
Yeah, I like it. We talked about him a bit on the show yesterday. Like,
oh, you did?
Yeah. But
he just was the 2K guy. I'm like, he's batting 5th. Like, I'll play him.
Well, he's just weird from like a projection standpoint because at Double-A in 2021, he had a 171 ISO. This year in 63 games at Double-A, 342 ISO. 34 games at Triple-A, 314 ISO. And then the bat projects him for a 138 ISO. Zips projects him for 151. Steamers at 206. Oh. It's just kind of like, how are we getting ISO projections that low? I don't totally buy into it. I expect him to come in closer to Steamer than anything else that I mentioned. And at 2K, like, he doesn't need to be at 200. He can be like 160, 170 and be a good play here, especially against a pitcher like Quantrill. So I think he's going a little bit under-owned here again today. I like getting to him. I like getting to Riley Green. Victor Reyes is 2K flat again. We made fun of Harold Castro being the cleanup hitter here despite having an ISO below 100. He then managed to double a couple of times and score a home run worth of points. But yeah, so like I once again, Eric Haas has power. He's only 3,500. I like the Tigers as much as you can like the Tigers.
I like them more. They're my favorite. Oh, I mean, everybody's a value stack when you're talking about Texas and Oakland and that whole situation that we have going. But what's happening over there?
So I have like floor to ceiling windows and then like, a shade that comes down. Mm-hmm. And so I have the shade like in front of my eyes so that my face didn't get like washed out. But I just keep seeing lightning bolts through the shade. And so I wanted to lift it up and see what the hell is going on outside.
It's a God-fearing man, Adam Scherer over there. He's just getting ready for the apocalypse. Stay ready, my friend. I like the Tigers quite a bit. This is probably the most, I can honestly say this. This is probably the most that I've liked a team with a 3 implied run total all season long.
Yeah, there is some crazy lightning right now. Yeah, and I'm with you. Like, in the context of the Tigers, I like them here about as much as I'm ever going to like the Tigers.
That's the right way of putting it. And if this Carpenter fellow, I mean, the bat is notoriously harsh when it comes to prospects, which is probably the right way to take
baseball is just hated by that projection model.
Yeah, I remember when Vlad got called up. That was the time where I was like, is the bat broken? Do I need to never use this again?
Right. Yeah. I remember the Ronald, I think it was Acuna.
It was Acuna. Yeah. That was who it was. It wasn't Vlad. I think Vlad might have still had a good projection, but it was definitely Acuna where it was like, okay. And then he came out of the gate, was hitting over 300, stealing bases, homering every day. That was fun.
Tatis also, I think, kind of did the same thing.
Okay. But that's more don't work out than work out. It's just that the glaring guys who are now good, you talk about all the time. So it's a little bit of a bias towards that, I would say.
And it's like, I'm kind of like that too. Like, outside of like the, absolute top prospects and or prospects on the Orioles, like I just assume everybody in every sport is going to suck when they move up to the top. So like it kind of is just like modeling what I personally believe. But yeah, it's interesting to point out the glaring gaps sometimes.
I got to say, I'm just glad to be on the content side and not the data side when it comes to making projections. I like to be able to be the one who's like, I don't agree with this on the one player, as opposed to being the guy who has to input it on everybody. Shout out our data team. They do incredible work and probably don't get the love that they deserve day in, day out. Being able to just log on and have the best in the industry available at your fingertips, that's pretty cool. So shout out them. Let's talk Cleveland here. This is the team I landed on in my 1-1-1 lineup. Wish I didn't because, I had a 25% chance of landing on the right one and having that 100K, but such is life. I like them again today. They make sense against this Norris fellow. They're terrible against left-handed pitching as a whole, but I will say still projecting out pretty well because of how bad Norris is. How do you feel about Cleveland today?
Yeah, I think they look good. 7.5% aggregate ownership, about a 7% chance of being the top stack for me, where you're factoring in salary. So Jose Ramirez also, I'm sure, driving up that ownership projection a little bit. He's in my early cash lineup. That shouldn't be surprising to anybody. But he's the only guy here north of 10%. Rosario's at 10%. Everybody else is less. Norris, not great, and probably also not going to go very deep into this game, I would assume. But just a pretty solid spot for the Guardians, I think.
All right. Anything else for you here?
No, I really wish I was able to like video this lightning so I could get like really cool pictures of it.
Do it. Just flip the camera around. It's not like, I mean, what? We're going to miss out on seeing Adam. And I was going to say this morning, I tuned in for the first 5 minutes because I was like, oh, I'll be a little self-seeking and see if anybody says anything nice about me. And it turned into Josh being like, Eric's a joke. He made 4 lineups. You suck. You're the worst. I'm like, sorry. I love you, Josh. He's a nice guy from time to time. He has his moments. But coming up after this, we got Greg Ehrenberg, Terry McBride on MLB Live Before Lock, starting up at 6. I will get moving here a little bit. And then PGA Live Before Lock. Let's get ready, folks. Ben Raza, Jeff Ulrich. It's going to be great. I'm looking forward to it. PGA Tour playoffs continue on. I didn't have to do golf this week. That was wild. What a wild trip here. But we had to Mets and Braves. And hit that like button while you're at it here, especially if you're just tuning in here. Almost 700 of you guys hang out watching baseball again for the 9-gamer here this afternoon or evening if you're on the East Coast, where Adam's about to die from lightning. New York Mets 4.1, Atlanta Braves 3.4, Scherzer, Odorizzi. Let's talk about one of these pitchers, not Odorizzi. How do you feel about Max Scherzer versus Carlos Rodon at the top end? Who do you prefer?
I prefer Rodon. I think it's certainly debatable. I have Rodon projected a bit better. He's also cheaper, and right now ownership's about the same, so that just means I'm going to get more Rodon. The matchup against the Diamondbacks is certainly better. There's plenty of strikeouts in the Braves lineup, but also a really good and dangerous lineup for Scherzer, whereas the Diamondbacks, much less dangerous, also in San Francisco, which is nice. About a 3 implied run total for the Diamondbacks, 3.7 for the Braves. So I do lean Rodon between the two if ownership's going to be about the same. If the ownership changes a bit, then I certainly could end up getting to more Scherzer. But right now, I would expect to be getting more Carlos Rodon.
I am on the exact opposite page as you. For me, it just comes down to looking at some of the splits that he has and some of the batters that I'm the most concerned about. Yeah, Matt Olson, for sure. He's still going to be potent here, but Acuna, Swanson, Riley, Contreras, you get a lot of these righties that are the guys who really do damage, and they do it against everybody. But Max Scherzer up against righties on the season, a 0.87 whip, a 2.73 xFIP, and a 32.6% K percentage. For me, that just kind of takes precedence. And I understand the ballpark's better, the lineup's better than everything you're looking at for Rodon. But in terms of having like a slate breaking performance, I think Scherzer is more inclined to do it than Rodon.
Yeah, I mean, like my counter is just that, like, because obviously I agree with everything you said. There were numbers. There's nothing to disagree with. But like Rodon against righties this year, 30.8% strikeout percentage, 258 expected WOBA. Like those are very, very similar to Scherzer's numbers against righties, and the guys that Rodon's facing, for the most part, aren't as good as the ones that Scherzer's facing.
Do you see yourself getting to lineups with both Scherzer and Rodon today?
In cash, for sure. Tournaments, I would assume I have some. The issue is that so from a roster construction standpoint, the Rangers are the team that are going to make it really, really easy to get Scherzer plus Rodon. The Rangers are really popular. Both of these pitchers are really popular. You're going to get a ton of overlap just going Rangers, Scherzer, Rodon, projects really well. Like, let's do that. So that's kind of tough. But like if I'm going to like the Tigers, then absolutely, why wouldn't I play Scherzer and Rodon together? If I'm going to a team like, I don't know, Oakland, same thing. So I do think there's some cheap stacks that are going to let you get both of those guys.
Yeah, I think St. Louis is going to let me get to both guys, actually. You get Lars Nootbaar, Donovan. Yep. We'll get to that spot here in a little bit. But
that lineup played out really well for that.
Yeah, the lineup just lended itself to doing what I want to do on this slate, which is get to some lineups with both of them and then mix in some real trash. But Jordan Montgomery's not trash. He's going to be one of my higher owned pitchers, I'm pretty sure as well. But let's talk on the other side of this. Jake Odorizzi, any interest whatsoever there?
No. Cool. 8K facing the Mets, tough team to strike out, good offense. He's another one. Like, he's projected for 1% ownership. I have him optimal 6% of the time. On the site, we have him as a top 2 scorer 6% of the time. But that's just still such a low probability play. I doubt I get it.
I've never heard of Brett Baty in my life, but there he is in a lineup. New York Mets. This is a team that you want to get to and they're not popular. You know why? Because they can light up absolutely anybody the same way that your outside window is lit up. Are you going to be okay? I think you're concerned over there.
Oh, no, I'm good. I was just looking up.
You're okay.
I knew they called up Brett Beatty. I was just looking at his stats.
Okay. Do you have them on the page right now? Because I'm just transferring everything over.
Yeah. Top 26. He's ranked 26th overall prospect, 70 grade raw power, 45-60 game power.
2K flat, baby. He's going to be in lineups.
232 ISO at AA this year. Only played 6 games at AAA, and now he's in the majors. Steamer projects him 165 ISO, 116 WRC plus rest of season. Certainly somebody you can be playing at 2K.
Scherzer or Valdez. Don't make me laugh, Obi-Wan. Don't make me laugh. Don't even. That's not even a question.
I included Valdez in my tournament plays videos just because of the lack of ownership, but obviously the strikeout gap is sizable.
It's one word for it. There's a joke. I'm not going to make it because it's inappropriate. Atlanta on the other side. Go.
Just like it really depends on your lineup to answer that question, I think. Like for me, I have Scherzer being optimal like 28% of the time. I have Valdez 12% of the time. Scherzer's getting like 4 times the ownership. So like you're getting the ownership disparity by itself is too big, I think. But in a lot of lineups, you're just going to have low enough owned hitters where you want Scherzer because he certainly projects much, much better. So, if it's a spot where like you're playing really popular Rangers and popular one-offs, then maybe you go Valdez there. But as a general statement, Scherzer.
All right. The Vogelbach Alonso question on DK always exists. You don't have to think about it on FanDuel. That's always fun. But yeah, Beatty, I'm going to get him in some lineups at 2K. I wanted to give him a special shout out there because 70 out of 70 raw power. Alex Kirilloff Jr. one time.
Wait, what?
No, I just love Alex Kirilloff, and he's been on the IL.
I'll say, isn't
forever.
he out for the year?
Sucks. Yeah, he's done. It sucks because I just love him, but whatever. Scoring Twins fan. We just keep winning ball games though now because Pagan has been banished to the other realm as he should be. Any Braves bats against Scherzer for you? I can't do it.
I don't think I can do it. Plenty of bad pitching on the slate. It's just really difficult for me to get to Atlanta.
Cool. Let's get to my favorite stack on the entire day here. We've got Colorado and St. Louis. It's not Colorado going up against Jordan Montgomery here. 20.8% K percentage, 1.07 whip. He's a pitcher that I'm pretty sure the Yankees would want back if they could do that over right now with the current struggles. I mean, they are starting Domingo Herman for God's sakes today, who might be okay long-term. Maybe we'll find out. But Jordan Montgomery, sub 7K. He is my third highest owned pitcher today. I'm getting to way more of him than I'm getting to Cal Quantrill. I think I already made that pretty clear. Where does Jordan Montgomery rank on your board today?
Yeah, I think he's right there with Quantrill as far as value pitchers for me. I personally like Montgomery more. The numbers that I am using like Quantrill a little bit more. I'm going to go with those and assume that they're right, and I'm not. But I have an easier time making a case for Jordan Montgomery just because he's a better pitcher.
Good.
Yeah, like he's a better pitcher. 20.8% strikeout percentage this year. Kind of surprised that's not even higher. It has been in the past. He did start throwing, I think it was a sinker more to righties this year, so getting ground balls, not getting as many swings and misses there. But a 3.58 xFIP, facing the Rockies outside of Coors. The Rockies lineup isn't good, but it's certainly better than the Tigers lineup. You do have plenty of right-handed bats here that can do damage if Montgomery's not on top of his game. But against righties overall this year, holding them to a 326 expected WOBA, 137 expected ISO. He's a good pitcher. He's too cheap. He should be popular.
Get by CJ Cronin, you're fine.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's how I feel about it. Just get by CJ Cronin, you're fine. I'll get some CJ Cronin as a one-off because I almost always do. Shout out Twins, the Bomba squad circa 2019. Missed those days, but you know what? Those were days that we still lost and got swept by the Yankees, so whatever. I want to talk St. Louis bats, and German Marquez, noticeably better on the road, as you would expect for just about any pitcher who pitches primarily half of their games in Coors Field. But it's not that pretty still for Marquez. And I just look at this St. Louis lineup, the way that it came out in the wash. And if I want to be getting to these Scherzer Rodon type combinations, if I wanted to try to go Scherzer and Valdez, if you guys are going to make the case for him there, this is how I do it, is I play St. Louis and I avoid the Texas chalk. That's kind of my game plan going into this slate. Maybe these guys at the top of the lineup end up really popular come lock. That's my worry, specifically Lars Newbar and Brendan Donovan. You get Nolan Gorman, tons of power batting fifth. You can obviously get the Goldie Arenado, much more palatable, not just palatable, much more video game-like against lefties than righties. But How do you feel about St. Louis? Because I think this is going to be my highest owned stack today.
I think they look good. I like the salaries. Obviously we were kind of just talking about that. How this lineup rolled out looks good from a value standpoint. I still think the ownership's about where it should be right now. About 4% projected ownership, 4.5% chance of being the top stack. I got him around 4 as well. Marquez is still just like a decent pitcher. The strikeout stuff isn't where it used to be, but 161 expected ISO to lefties, 185 to righties this year. 307 WOBA outside of cores, I believe. 307 WOBA away from cores. Like, he's still a good pitcher. The Cardinals offense is also good. So I do like them. I just think that they don't really stand out to me more so than some of the other cheap offenses.
Okay, that's fair. For me, it's just if I'm going to get to the other offenses, there's going to be a lot of overlap because everybody's going to be able to get to Scherzer, Rodon with it, right?
Yeah, agreed.
Like for me, it's just trying to find a stack that isn't them where I can get to the 2 best pitchers that you actually have to pay up for today. And then you get the power of Goldschmidt, Arenado, where it's really not all that hard to still make way for them. But that kind of is the way I look at it. Anything you wanted to shout out on Colorado, I kind of stepped over them, but I kind of wanted to.
No, I mean, you mentioned it with CJ Cron. He's kind of always playable. Brendan Rodgers is more expensive than I would really like. The team as a whole is more expensive than I would like. So I think it's going to be very, very difficult to get to them.
All right. Well, we got 4 games left. You guys know what to do. Hit the like button as we talk a little Odd Shopper, the presenting sponsor here of the Deeper Dive. And do you want to find the best bets? Look at this. I just clicked Odd Shopper, and in 10 seconds, it says 30 seconds or less, but I'm telling you, that legitimately took me 10 seconds to be able to log on. All you do is you put your email in over at oddshopper.com. That is ODDSS, 2 S's in the middle of it, HOPPER. That is oddshopper.com. You go over there, you sign up with an email address, a valid email address, and you will have access to all of the best tools and content curated by Alex Baker, Steve Buzzard, Eddie Lai, Seanzon. If you guys don't know these guys, you know their monikers. You got the Colts, you got Awesemo, you got all of these unbelievable DFS players that have just been smashing the betting realm with the MLB odds and bets page. You can look up total strikeouts. You can look up home run odds. You can look up everything in an instant over at Odd Shopper. Jump over there here. We've got an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and 20 minutes. If you have legalized sports betting in your state and you aren't using this every single day to help you make informed betting decisions, you're just simply doing it wrong. They are spending so much time and energy making sure that these numbers are repeatedly showing up. We're trying to find ways to make them better every single day. They're going to be available for NFL coming up here very soon. We're going to have NCAA football bets. We're going to have NBA and NHL when those come back. We have golf live right now. I'm telling you, it's an absolute blast looking at the board. And CJ Cron, that was kind of my segue to Homers, plus 600. It's got the exact sports book where you could go put that bet at the best odds available. That's why it says best bet. Look at me reading. Expected ROI of 25%, 18% expected win percentage. That's what I'm more concerned about playing Prize Picks in California. But for you guys, where you have legalized sports betting, make sure every single day that you're checking out this page and starting your process here, you're finishing your process here. Go to oddshopper.com, go sign up, and click around on some of the best bets available today. We continue on, my friend. 4 games to go. This is a biggie. Oakland Athletics, Texas Rangers, 4 implied runs for Oakland. Pretty high for them. Texas Rangers, 5. Adam Oller. Yeah, there ain't no Oller back, girl. And Cole Reagans, I don't know. It's weird. Is he lefty? Then he can't be Ronald Reagan's kid because he'd be a righty. See what I did there?
I got it. Yeah.
Thank you. Any pitchers? Because these guys suck. Cole Reagans has actually been okay so far, but like not from a DFS perspective.
Yeah, I mean, if I got to one, I think it would be Reagan's. He did have a 27% strikeout percentage through 8 starts at AAA this year. Hasn't struck out anyone in the majors. Also had a 4.75 xFIP at AAA. So certainly risky, but he's facing Oakland. He at least has some semblance of strikeout stuff. He is only 5,400. I think it's much easier to make a case to get to him than it is to get to Oller.
People like that joke. People like that one. That was a pretty good one. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
Thank you. A little bit patting myself on the back. It's been a day full of that. It's a day full of patting myself on the back. I am so special, so smart. My wife made me breakfast this morning, and I'm like, you just want me to book a trip. I feel it. I feel I'm supposed to book a trip. I think that's what's coming. That's 100% what's coming. Sushi is coming tonight. That's going to be delicious. We are going to go overboard on that. But hey, Oakland. We're going to go somewhere nearby in our spot. Oh God, I love Katana. Maybe I do want to go to Katana. That is so bomb. That was not a bad night. Thanks for splitting the bill, Jordan Klein. But we continue on. Just throw him under the bus. It was you and me just taking care of the people.
Jordan wasn't able to split the bill because he was on his phone and missed that we were paying.
The whole night. We'll talk. We'll debunk that one on a later date when we don't have 14 minutes left in the show. But we need to talk offenses, and I think this Oakland offense. There's a lot of cheapies over on this side too, and they're far less popular than you're going to be looking at from the Texas side. But it's still just whatever in terms of an offensive team. But there's a ton of positive leverage. It looks like going their direction. It looks like we might have a little bit of a bug there because 6% ownership share, 6.6% top stack percentage. I guess it's just kind of the regular Sean Murphy. Chad Pinder batting cleanup 2K flat. Jonah Bride now 2K flat 5 in the 5 hole. I mean, what are you planning to do with Oakland?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they are a pretty appealing offense to get to on this slate. Just because Ragans has only made 2 major league starts, he's probably not a quality major league pitcher at this point. And the A's are really cheap and just not getting the same amount of ownership that the Rangers are. So you're going to be able to build very similar lineups. You can still get to Scherzer and Carlos Rodon and some good one-offs going to the Oakland side of this. So I do think that their ownership is just a little bit more appealing than Texas's. Obviously, if you're just talking in terms of, chances of being the top stack, Texas looks much better. But you have a good catcher option in Murphy at 4,500. If you need to save money, you have Langoliers, who's 2K flat. He's a very good hitting prospect as well. Not entirely sure why he's hitting 8th on the A's. He shouldn't be. Chad Pinder, 2K flat, looks good. You have multi-position eligible guys at the top with Nick Allen and David McKinnon both having it. Jonah Bride hitting 5th, has second base, third base. Sheldon Noisy has second base, third base. So this is a team that, not only are they really cheap and easy to stack for that reason, they're easy to stack because you can just move guys all over the place. The only stacking part that is a little difficult is the fact that 2 of the best hitters in the lineup are both catchers.
And everything you said about Oakland does not apply to this Texas Rangers team. Josh Smith batting 8th, the only guy with dual eligibility on the entire Texas team, and holy mother of God, they're going to be chalked today. Outside of the back half of the lineup, 1 through 6, everybody getting 9, 10% or greater. Seager, wow. Garcia, Nate Lowe, excuse me. He was pissy about that back in the day. Adolis Garcia, Valoria, all crazy popular.
It's not, for him, it's not the last name. It's Nathaniel.
Oh, it's Nathaniel. Oh, I'm so sorry, Nathaniel. How dare we come into your place and not name your name correctly?
Yeah, he's the one. His mom wrote in and told the broadcasters it's not Nate, it's Nathaniel.
Whatever. He's in Major League Baseball. Be happy. It's a 1 in a billion, lady. Whatever. Talk to me about this super chalky Texas team.
They're clearly the best overall stack in terms of chances of success and salary. 9% chance of being the top stack, which is 3rd behind the Dodgers and Red Sox, but a 15.5% chance of being the top value compared to 5% for Boston, 2% for the Dodgers. As a result, 16% aggregate ownership going here. When I built my early cash lineup, I had 5 guys from Texas. They're going over-owned. They're also really good plays. I think it's likely that I kind of just end up mixing them into lineups more so than full stacking them. But when you go through and think about who's the top plays at different positions, Semien certainly on the short list at second base, Seager on the short list at shortstop. Nate Lowe is probably your cash first baseman. Adolis Garcia is probably in your cash lineup. Valoria batting 5th as a 2K catcher is almost definitely your cash catcher. Brad Miller has power. It's just a team that's completely mispriced on a slate where pricing is actually a bit tighter than normal.
We got a $20 super chat. I think we covered that game pretty well. We'll move ourselves along here, unless there's anything else you had.
Nope.
Cool. Cyber Real Estate, $20. Make you holla. Actually, it's literally what it is. It's a super chat. Hello, in brackets. I don't know why it's bracketed, but I love it. Hello, I love your show and the knowledge Stokastic gives to fantasy sports. You're so welcome. I am an outfielder type fantasy player. I don't know how that works, but I am very happy for you. Who is your one-shot guy that you want to get to in the outfield? So outfielder play that is going to be top dog today. Peace, love, and happiness. If I said Aaron Judge or Yordan Alvarez, I kind of said both names together at the same time. Those would be the two just from a pure projection standpoint for me. But Kyle Tucker's my favorite overall, 4,500 in terms of value. He would be my favorite total outfielder from a DFS perspective today. Who would be yours, my friend?
Yeah, I'll throw Mookie into the
Okay.
Aaron Judge and Yordan Alvarez category. Obviously, I agree with those guys as well. Also, really like Kyle Tucker a lot.
I like the lefties. Let's get to them, shall we? We have Houston. We have the White Sox. Framber Valdez, Michael Kopech. Kopech completely mowed down the Tigers. You know who he's not facing today? The Tigers. You're looking at Houston here, but let's start with Valdez. If you're looking for that quote-unquote pivot, I guess he would be it. But as you said earlier, as you spelled out, the strikeout gap is considerable, just a 22.1% strikeout rate. He's elite. A negative 4-degree average launch angle, nearly a 70% ground ball rate, 314 expected slugging. The guy is really good at what he does, but it is not getting strikeouts at the big league level. He's just run of the mill with that. How do you feel about Valdez as a pivot?
It's like kind of touched on it earlier. It's just a relatively low probability play because you're talking about a guy with a 22% strikeout percentage compared to guys that are striking out 30+% of the hitters that they face. So he has like a huge gap there, and he's good at preventing runs. He gets a lot of ground balls, like you said, gets a lot of soft contact. He's a very good pitcher, and I don't mind rostering him. It's just that the opportunity cost of those other guys is so high. So I think it's more likely that like when I get to him, it's, in Texas stacks or something like that, where I'm allocating a bunch of ownership to my hitters and I need to save it somewhere. In most lineups, I think I'm going to end up just getting to Rodon and Scherzer instead.
And with Michael Kopech, it really just comes down to like last year as a reliever, 36.1% K rate, a 2.83 expected ERA. This season, a 22% K rate, a 12% walk rate that just kind of came out of nowhere, and a 3.82 expected ERA. And now you get two lefties specifically. I spelled them out. Kyle Tucker, Yordan Alvarez. They're almost always two of my highest owned batters. I feel like almost on every single slate, it's kind of a cheat code. Now they're popular. It makes me a little bit disturbed, but at 4,500 on DK, I'm okay just getting to a lot of Tucker. Amongst the top end guys, Yordan Alvarez is probably second to me behind Judge still. But how do you look at Houston as a stack on today's slate?
I think they look good. Not a little. They're more expensive than a team like Texas, but similar top stack percentages, 8.2% compared to 9%, getting 9% ownership. So I think the ownership is a little bit more favorable. And also I had them showing up around 9% as well, and that's factoring in salary. So it wasn't really that difficult to get to them, even though they are more expensive. So I think they look good. Kopech has done a good job of striking out lefties this year with a 30% strikeout percentage compared to 16% against righties. But he's also given up more power to lefties with a 185 expected ISO compared to 140 against righties. So certainly not afraid to get to Alvarez and Tucker. We know Altuve is good. He's always a top second base option if you can afford him. Bregman, Mancini. It's just a really good offense that is getting some ownership, but not getting enough that I want to get away from him.
Agreed. 1 through 8, especially my team Maldonado, you can chill, but whatever. He's 2,700 and just fits in the stack. Whatever.
I think he's won me 2 different GPPs this year as well, just randomly hitting home runs.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Because he's like 2%, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you got to mix in low owned batters no matter what. It's you can't just always play the best plays. That's called cash.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know he's won me at least one. I don't remember if it's more than one or if I've just had like multiple sweats where it's just like, oh, I have an Astros stack where Martin Maldonado hit like 2 home runs at 2%.
Any love whatsoever for the White Sox? I can't do it against Valdez. This ground ball rate is just stupid.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're going under owned, but that's because they're getting like 1.5% ownership. I think they're also a very low probability stack against a pitcher that just is extremely, extremely good at limiting production. 22% strikeout percentage against righties for Valdez. Expected ISO against righties, less than 100. Against lefties, less than 100. 268 expected WOBA to lefties, 286 to righties. Not great at getting strikeouts, but extremely, extremely good at limiting power.
2 games to go, everybody. Smash that like button before we get Greg, before we get Terry. Going to be a great show. We're just, we're the appetizer for the main entree or something like that. But even though Adam, I would never say that about Adam. I'm still a scrub. It's just what it is. You can't get second in a made GPP one time. It's like Adam's like, talk to me in a month. Talk to me in a month. Yeah, we're gonna have some fun in golf this week.
I am due for my monthly win soon.
You are. I'd say overdue. Yeah. I didn't play the last 4 days. I have no idea. Let's talk Dodgers.
I'm on a nice little losing streak since my MMA.
Nice. Since you lost your 40K ticket, right? Sucka?
Yep.
Awesome. I love you. I didn't mean that like that. I'm sorry, baby. Just sometimes I get so scared of being a nobody. You got that one or not?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Billy Madison.
Happy Gilmore. Oh, it is Billy Madison. So no, it's Happy Gilmore. I was right. I know it's Happy Gilmore.
Happy Gilmore. Okay.
It's okay. Same shit. Let's talk Dodgers. Let's talk Brewers. We got bets. This is your boy over here that you were talking about. 4.6, 4.5 implied run total we're looking at here for the Dodgers. Milwaukee on the other side. Eric Lauer on the mound for them. Tony Gonsolin has been nails over the course of the season. 33% hard hit rate, 273 xWOBA, but all of that looks great. I mean, it's hard to say he's like negatively regressed hard because, like, I mean, he was always going to come down from like a 2 ERA he was at, or come up, from a 2 ERA. But he's really good at pitching. And Milwaukee, I don't know really what to do with him on today's slate. Are you getting to any Gonsolin?
I think he's in that Framber Valdez bucket. I mentioned him being underowned in my tournament plays videos as well, but I don't think it's somebody that you like just start jamming into lineups, more so as you can use him in specific lineups. There are some strikeouts for Milwaukee. They're also a good team in terms of power. Gonsolin's a good but not great pitcher. You know, like I think we've talked about it before where he's clearly going to regress, but like there's that like negative connotation where you say somebody's going to regress and people think you're saying he's going to be terrible. He's still going to be good. He's just not going to be as lucky as he was. 2.24 ERA this year compared to a 3.81 xFIP. 23.5% strikeout percentage is solid. 84.1% left on base percentage has to come down. 203 BABIP has to come up. So, you know, I think he's still a good pitcher here. I think he's a little bit overpriced, and he doesn't offer the same sort of strikeout upside that Scherzer and Carlos Rodon do, but he's also not going to get nearly as much ownership. So in those, you know, Texas-type lineups, I think he makes some sense. As in terms of total exposure, I don't expect to get to a ton.
Remember at the beginning of the season when Eric Lauer had like a 30% K rate and we were all like, oh, maybe he's just made some really noticeable changes to his arsenal, Adam.
Yeah, that didn't happen.
That didn't happen. 23.5% K rate here on the season. 4.12 expected ERA, whatever. 3.64 actual ERA. He's facing the Dodgers. No, thank you.
Yep, agreed.
There we go. So let's talk Dodgers bats because they seem good.
Oh, yeah, I thought there was like a follow-up there.
Nope, there was zero.
Yeah, I actually think they're one of my favorite tournament stacks right now. We have them first in top stack percentage at 10.5%, but only getting 7.5% aggregate ownership. And I just don't really think it's that difficult to get to them. Like, you know, you're probably not going to be building Scherzer plus Rodon plus Dodgers lineups, but I have no issue going to Montgomery or Quantrill as my SP2, along with Rodon or Scherzer, getting to these Dodgers bats. And there are also, you know, it's a good team where you can mix in the Rangers, you can mix in the A's, get some of those 2K hitters to help offset the Dodgers salaries as well. So I don't think that they're really that difficult to get to. You do also have some cheaper bats toward the bottom. Anzer Alberto probably gets pinch hit for at some point, but he's only 2,500 with multi-position eligibility. Trace Thompson has some power. You know, you have Austin Barnes instead of Will Smith, which does water down the lineup a bit, but also gives you a cheap catcher option. So, you know, top to bottom, it's not the most expensive team either. It's really just the, you know, Betts, Turner, Freeman portion that's expensive.
I kind of have concerns about Alberto on a slate like this, where there's 15 or 20 guys who are 2K who I know are going to get 4 at bats. Like, I can't do Alberto today.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more likely like where I have Alberto is going to be like a full Dodger stack more so than me just like throwing Alberto into lineups.
That's true. Okay. That's the right way of looking at it. Also, Keston Hiura, just noticed him batting fifth with his 43.6% K percentage. Bump up that projection on Tony Gonsolin, folks. I'm going to be doing that. But Milwaukee Brewers, any interest whatsoever?
A little bit. I do think I do think they're going a little bit underowned. We have them with about 2% projected ownership. We have them with a 2% top stack percentage. I had them closer to 5%. So that makes me think maybe I get to them a little bit here. The power is appealing. Gonsolin obviously is a good pitcher. 169 expected ISO to righties, sub 100 to lefties. If they're not going to get any ownership here, I do just like the power upside that this team offers.
All righty. One game to go here. Rowdy Tellez, shout out him, right? He seems good.
Yeah. Renfroe as well at 4,400.
Yeah, 4,400. That's pretty low for good old Renfroe here. Let's do that. Oh, why are we doing laundry right now? Whatever. Not my department there. Let's go to one more game left to go, but I got to throw this in here too as we're rounding it out. Tua, that is the promo code for the NFL preseason projections. You know him, you want him, Matt Gajewski. We throw him out in a log cabin every single summer. We make him live out on the wilderness and just sit there with a spreadsheet and input data. Like, that's literally what we make Matt Gajewski do. So if you want to have his projections for preseason, trust me, you want these projections. Use promo code TUA for 75% off. Yeah, it'll just be $5 for those preseason projections. Check that offer out, my friends. One game to go, and it's going to be a quickie because we just have to talk a lot of pitching and one side of this one for sure. Carlos Rodon versus Zach Davies here. One's good, one's not. I guess the ballpark is a thing for Davies, but still, Carlos Rodon, 31.1% K rate. You said you liked him more than Max Scherzer. I want you to make the case once more for the people.
Yeah, I think it's just that, obviously you're splitting hairs between the two, but overall this season, 31.1% strikeout percentage for Rodon, 31.3 for Scherzer, 3.08 xFIP for Rodon, 3.2 for Scherzer. Very similar strikeout numbers, just very similar everything. But excuse me, but a better spot for him pitching in San Francisco against Arizona as opposed to facing the Braves in Atlanta. Again, both pitchers look great. I think Rodon looks a little bit better. He's also a little bit cheaper. As long as ownership continues to be similar between the two, I expect to get to more Carlos Rodon here.
All righty. And Arizona, we're not going to play. I have one share. I just built 150 for the hell of it here. I'm not sure if I'm going to play the 150 today, but I got one share of Christian Walker, and that was all. Yeah,
I can't imagine I'm getting to much, if any, Arizona.
All right. So let's talk San Francisco to round it out. And we know there can be pitch hitting risk from time to time here with the old San Francisco Giants. That is just kind of an assumed risk. But it's a good spot against Zach Davies, as much as it can be a good spot in that ballpark. Run creation, pretty neutral. Home runs are just kind of a nothingness. But San Francisco, make the case for them if you can.
Yeah, I mean, they have plenty of quality left-handed bats. Davies has actually struck out 23.8% of righties this year, but only 11% of lefties, 159 expected ISO. Jock Peterson's affordable at 4,300. Brandon Belt is sub 3K. Yastrzemski's 3,100. Crawford's 2K flat. La Stella multi-position eligibility, 2,200. Even Wilmer Flores, at 3,900, he's right-handed. But this team is really cheap. The park sucks for power, like you said, but they're getting some ownership, probably going a little bit over-owned, but they're another team that you can just get to quality hitters at cheap price tags and then get good pitching around them.
All right, round it out for me, Adam, here. Favorite three pitchers for today's slate?
Rodon, Scherzer, Jordan Quantrill.
Yeah, Montgomery for me is going to be in the 3-hole there. And your three favorite stacks?
Dodgers, Oakland. I mean, I guess I kind of have to say Texas. Texas, if you can find a way to offset the ownership. Otherwise, I do like Houston.
I'm with you. Cardinals 1 for me, Dodgers 2, Oakland 3. That does it for the MLB Deeper Dive, y'all. I saw all the great messages and notes. I couldn't stop every 5 seconds to say thank you for every single one. Cannot tell you how much it means to me. You guys are the best. This community is the best. Hit that like button, subscribe button, and notification bell as we get out of here. Thank you to Tyler Zander behind the virtual glass. Adam, any final words for the people?
I do not care that Carlos Rodon is owned by the Diamondbacks, Sean B.
Sean V, I might just time you out just for the hell of it because I'm feeling frisky today. That's what it is. He's Adam. He's going to avoid lightning. I'm Eric. I live in California. What is lightning? We'll see you guys later.
Because we went from 1-2 to actually 2-1 as we flipped sides in a necessary game with Seattle and LA. So technically we went 2-1 last night following the 3-0 and 2-1 and all that. But regardless, it's all about the new day, right? Doesn't matter what I do the night before. It doesn't matter how many times Ben Rasa virtually pats me on the back for clearing another 3-0 night. It doesn't matter because all you want is another day of winners. And that's why I'm here. That's why we're here on the Odd Shopper channel. We don't sit and rest on any laurels after winning 1 or 2 days. No. We're back with 3 more NRFI or YRFI picks, depending on how things play on BetMGM. So, yes, I still have that risk-free opportunity that I'm going to tell you about. But for now, let's head on over to BetMGM. And while we're doing that, why don't you hit the thumbs up button? Why don't you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss anything of what we're doing? And the notification bell actually helps you out because these come out earlier in the day and lines move. Things happen. Value goes, comes, and then next thing you know, it's just completely gone. So we're going to start. Actually, we're going to start in this game as a yes run first inning. Yes, there will be a run in the first inning for the A's and Rangers. All right, so let's start there. How can we not with Adam Oller and Cole Ragans? These two guys on the mound. The fact that this is only minus 130, I imagine this is probably going to jump, maybe even 145 by the time you hit first pitch tonight. The reality is that both of these guys are just as bad as it sounds. And Oller has since been stretched out, but it really hasn't helped him at all. In fact, it's continued to expose him as a guy who's really more like an opener than anything else. And that's having an impact on him because he's not just going from 1 1/3, 1 2/3 starts to 1 1/3, 1 2/3 starts. This has been tough. And this has been a difficult couple of outings for Adam Oller as the now starter, not opener. And the other guy in Cole Ragans is just, he got this first start where everybody was like, yeah, all right, maybe Texas has something this year. And then he goes up against Houston and you can expect what happened, which is an absolute flattening. So, yeah, when I look at these two guys on the hill, this is the one thing that we try and target with bad pitching is whip. It's not just ERA. It's not just the K rate, although K rate's important, especially on an NRFI play. But basically, the sauce and the secret in it is if you're going YRFI. Now, there are other things, other pieces of metrics that we use, runs per first inning, etc. But just from a pitching standpoint, in the case of this game here, how can you not look at both of these guys with low K rates? Both of these guys with high walk rates, 11.8%, 15.9% respectively for Oakland, Texas starter here tonight. Does it even matter whose name is associated with those numbers when they're both awful? So you know that there's going to be an opportunity for somebody to get on the bag. In fact, I would...
What is going on, everybody? That was very weird. So, because the Tyler producing, we can't hear the music, couldn't hear it. But then the second the show starts, all of a sudden, the music is blasting over here. I don't know if it's the same experience for you, Terry. Good way to introduce Terry to the show. He's been hanging out with me on this Wednesday, breaking down the slate. Do us a favor, guys. Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Terry's just a few days removed from winning $30K over on FanDuel, but not to be one-upped. Eric did the same thing last night. So we're on a roll here, and not to brag, but I've got a stomach bug right now, little bit of the flu over here. So we've all got different things going well for us right now in our lives, different calibers of things. But Terry, how are you feeling about tonight's baseball slate? We're sponsored by OddsShopper. We've got new tools on the site, cool stuff going on. How do you like this slate though?
It's an okay slate. It's I like the slates where we get some funky pitching, or we don't have like a couple apex guys going, where we've got maybe that next tier as our top guys. Like if Framber was our top guy today, it would be more my kind of slate. I don't like the ace level Carlos Rodon, Max Scherzer type slates, but they're here. We can use them. They'll be popular. But yeah, we'll dig in through some of these other options, see if we can turn over any other stones for good pitching options at lower ownership. And I think there's definitely some interesting spots to stack, although it does look like a night where the power might be down a little bit. Really only Texas is smashing through the top of my home run model. Every other team is sitting a little bit below average tonight. So just an interesting setup for the slate. But yeah, I'm feeling good about going through it anyway. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, so we found some way to make me paler, is we make me sick before the shows. It wasn't my mom's meatballs though, because my mom was actually sick before dinner, as was my sister-in-law, and then I just got sick from them. So it was not the food. The food was good. For people asking in chat, because I've been encouraging people in Discord. It's one of the perks of being a Stokastic Plus Platinum membership, which you guys could get by signing up using the promo code MLB Live. It gets you 50% off your first week, is they get to ask us questions. And none of the questions are ever baseball related anymore. It's just stuff. So now people want to know about, because we had yesterday, Seth in the chat had brought up that he wanted to know where babies come from. So that was a discussion I had to have with them. And I brought that up at dinner last night, thinking it was funny, this whole thing, which led to my mom saying I was a mistake. So now this whole thing is going back and forth. So I'm getting lots of questions about that today. And then also Seth now follow up, because now Seth knows where babies come from. He wants to know if I'm available to babysit, or should he just leave the kids at the strip club tonight? I'm sick. I'm not going to be available to babysit. So there's the answer there. And then in terms of no baseball questions, Woody C wants to know what my favorite kind of fry is. Just a regular French fry. None of curly fries, waffle fries, none of that fancy shit. I just want a normal French fry. I don't know. Is there like a specific name for? I just all right. So
if we're throwing out all like the different types of or styles of fry, we're just talking straight up French fry, which I think the heart of his question is probably like which fast food franchises French fries are your favorite? Boy, that's alliterative.
Well, so I can't eat most of them because, well, especially not now, but also I have Crohn's and colitis. So I kind of have like a somewhat restrictive diet. And I don't know if you knew this, but most fast food places also make their fries with dairy. So that's also problematic for me.
That I did not know.
Yeah. So can't eat most of them, but
just fries.
You know, we're actually really good. Just frozen fries in the air fryer. Actually very, very good. But
air fryers come up on these channels like way too often. We should get an air fryer sponsorship for one, but I still am yet to buy myself one, despite every time they come up me saying, oh, yeah, I got to get myself one of those. Every time I've ever tried food from one, it's good. And it seems like nice and convenient.
They are the absolute nuts, not dissimilar from the top of the pitching tier today. When you mentioned it, we've got Scherzer, we've got Rodon, and it's pretty tough to differentiate between them. And I also think it's kind of hard to get away from them. They're both projected for north of 40% ownership over on DraftKings. On FanDuel, we do have a little bit more of an ownership gap there, because DK similar ownership on FanDuel, though 31% ownership for Rodon and then 21% for Scherzer. Terry, what are you doing at the top of the pitching tier?
I think I'm probably going to have a little bit more of Carlos Rodon, even though he's the more popular of the two, just based on matchup, based on how he projects out. He's a little bit cheaper on the FanDuel slate, so you're gaining there. I probably won't, as usual, be pushing out to the 30% that the field is at. I capped him at around 20 in the lineup builds that I'm running, and then that'll probably whittle down a little bit more. If it's in the 15 to 18 range, that's probably about where I'm going to put both him and then maybe Max in like the 13 to 15, 12 to 15 kind of a range. Undercut the field on both of them for me, and then maybe spread some shares out and just look for that night where neither one of them really blows through the top of scoring, and then we maybe sneak through with a Framber Valdez, a Jordan Montgomery, a Tony Gonsolin, and some of these other characters on the slate. That said, it's not like we've got a ton of great options in that category, so I will definitely have weight on the two aces. I mean, I think it's an important part of the puzzle today. On the DK side of things, it's still Scherzer 300 more expensive. He's a little bit more, the difference between the two in price is a little bit more stark on the FanDuel slate. But like you said, they're a little bit more similarly owned on DK. I think it's more of a coin toss over there. But again, I would just kind of default to matchup, go to the Rodon side, pitching against a much better matchup. As much as the Braves strike out against right-handed pitching, I've mentioned on the last few shows, they just dominate right-handed pitching with their power, with their run creation numbers. So tough matchup for Scherzer, but he is Max Scherzer. He is going to find his strikeouts. It's just a matter of whether he puts they hang no runs on him or whether they hang like 2 or 3 on him. At that point, we're quibbling over a few points.
And if I'm not mistaken, I believe he leads baseball in both ERA and FIP since coming back off the injured list. He had that long layoff due to injury. He's come back. He's been outstanding since then. But I do think this is a pretty good opportunity to bring up the new MLB player comparison tool. So Tyler, if you could pull that up on screen right now. I just want to do a little comparison here, Scherzer and Rodon. We also just got a new ownership projection run, which I think might change your mind a little bit on this, Terry, because we do have now Max Scherzer currently projected for 39% ownership and Rodon at 48% ownership. So we throw these, and this is for DraftKings. For right now, we just have the player comparison tool for DK, going to be coming to FanDuel in the near future as well. But now, if you look at the big gap in terms of ownership, and this is really similar to yesterday, we were doing Zach Plesac versus Jeffrey Springs. Plesac was one of the most popular pitchers on the slate. And when we looked at them in the player comparison tool, it was basically 50-50. Like there was no real considerable edge in terms of who we had projected to do better more often than not. And that's kind of the same here, which I don't think is any surprise. Like Scherzer, Rodon comes out as a near pick'em, a slight lean towards Scherzer in our projections and our sims right now. But we currently have Scherzer at 39% projected ownership compared to 48% for Rodon. I'm going to lean a little bit more heavily towards Scherzer because of that ownership discount. Does that make sense to you now that we're getting them, separated by about 10 ownership points?
Yeah, that opens up a decent sized gap. Just a minute ago when I was looking at the top pitchers board, it was Rodon at 42.9 and Scherzer at 40.8. That was essentially the same. Now that there's a 10-point gap in there, you can definitely make that case for 300 more. It's worth taking the shots with Max Scherzer. There's a ton of strikeout upside for him in that Braves lineup, like I was just getting at. The Braves are sitting against right-handed pitching this season. Braves active roster has a 25.3% strikeout rate. That's 29th out of 30 teams in baseball. Their ISO ranks second, 202. Their home run rate ranks first, 4.43. Run creation is 12th at 108 against righties. So there's definitely a threat there. But again, Max Scherzer, easy to find strikeouts with Max Scherzer. And in this matchup, he could definitely get there. So yeah, with that ownership in mind, you're paying a little bit more for it, but it seems worth it.
And then, I'm going to find it really hard to get away from these guys. So I'm just kind of curious, based on their current ownership projections, we just got the update. I'm going to say for me, I tend to want to be a little bit overweight to Scherzer, a little bit underweight to Rodon. Do you see it differently? Or are you underweight to both, overweight to both? How are you going to be approaching this in large field tournaments?
Let's see where the FanDuel ownership came down, since that's where I'll be playing. So Rodon around 30 still, and Scherzer is around 20. I'll probably cut that down by about 10 percentage points on Rodon, and I might end up with Scherzer right around the field then, and keep it like 20 and 20 on both of them, spread out the other 60 points through some of these other pitchers. It might push out a little higher than that. We'll see how the sort comes through, but yeah, there's still a decent gap there on the FanDuel slate. So that does push Scherzer up in my esteem in the head-to-head on FanDuel as well here. I guess it's definitely interesting to get him that much lower owned. I do like the fact though that you're getting an $800 discount on Rodon now, and I can offset that ownership. Like as long as you're not putting Rodon together with like the top half of the Rangers, the super popular bats, I think you can still roster it and get away from the popularity and not really worry about it. So I'm okay with taking that and being overweight to more on Rodon if that's the angle that people want to take. I don't think you're making a mistake.
Got big news here. But more important than, so it's funny because Malokar is really one of the most wholesome people we have in the YouTube channel, because I'm just getting people, the Discord channel is people making fun of me for being a mistake and other things, people talking about me being sick and whatnot and me getting trolled with questions. And then Malokar comes in, drops a super chat. My daughter just had my first grandson, Cameron. So there we go. Right in the ship. We've got a little bit of positivity out in the universe as well. So Malokar, congrats. Really a good dude. He's been here nearly every day and since forever. As long as I've been doing shows and whatnot, Malakar's been hanging out in chat. So we appreciate you and congrats. That's really cool. And definitely do love to see it. And yeah,
congrats, Grandpa. Way to go.
Yeah, Grandpa. We don't have to take digs at him for the age and him being Grandpa or anything.
I can rub it in. I've earned the right. I'm in my 40s. My friends will be grandparents soon enough.
Yeah.
Malachi's a good dude, like I said.
Yeah.
For my few Twitter followers.
Yeah. Insert EMAC joke here. So when we're looking at the rest of this slate, though, if you want to differentiate it, pitcher, are you more apt to do it with some of the other high-end pitchers that are lower owned, or just by saving salary and going cheaper pitcher?
So I do want to get to some shares of some of the, the more talented guys, obviously. But I mentioned Framber a minute ago, Framber Valdez from Houston. He's going up against the White Sox. So again, not an ideal matchup. I think Jordan Montgomery is kind of interesting. He's down from a cheap tier going up against the Rockies in St. Louis. I think that's just kind of an interesting spot for 8,700 on FanDuel, 6,900 on DK. So, and then Tony Gonsolin's right there for me in terms of projection. And he's got like a mediocre matchup. I'd say the Brewers are probably a little bit below the White Sox in terms of my esteem of their lineup and how the lineup should function when they're fully healthy. So I think it's a little bit tougher spot for Framber, but I think Framber's a little bit more talented and definitely is better at keeping a lineup down, maybe not the strikeout upside. So that one's kind of a give and take, but price-wise, it's tough to say because then you get like Rich Hill for a very discounted price against the Pittsburgh Pirates. He's hitting the middle of the board for me. It's not like yesterday I was saying all day long, Nick Pivetta. He was projecting toward the top of my board and nobody was going there. Today, it's more Rich Hill looks okay. He's kind of like in the middle of my board. He's probably a little higher than Rich Hill would normally project against a better team, but it's still not screaming for ownership. But he is there for 6,800. Corey Kluber in the 8,000. So there's a lot of different guys in these different tiers. So it's going to be kind of a spread it around day in terms of these other guys. There's no one guy screaming for all the attention.
Yeah. So for me, I'm going to want to spend down at pitcher. I just think that's going to be the easiest way to differentiate in large field tournaments. The guy I don't want to spend down with, though, and this is almost the exact same play, I think, from yesterday. We had the field was not like crazy heavy on Zach Plesac because the ownership was kind of dispersed, but still he came in right around 20% ownership. And we're seeing the same thing with Cal Quantrill today. I get it. Right-handed pitchers against Detroit Tigers, they have crushed the entire season. The Tigers are miserable against right-hand pitching. One of the worst teams against the handedness of a pitcher that we've seen in recent memory. But I just don't want to play a pitcher that I don't think is particularly good and doesn't generate very many strikeouts when they are chalky. So Cal Quantrill today is currently the third most popular pitcher on FanDuel. Yeah, we've got Rodon 2, Rodon 1, Scherzer 2, and then Cal Quantrill picking up the third most ownership. And then over on DK, it is Rodon 1, Scherzer 2, Montgomery 3, and then Cal Quantrill coming in fourth. I can get behind Montgomery a little bit more just because I think he's better than what Cal Quantrill is. When it comes to Quantrill, I mean, 4.42 expected ERA, 4.38 FIP, 4.5 xFIP, and a 16% K rate. I just don't think there's enough upside there to warrant the kind of ownership he's picking up. It's solely based on the matchup. And that's just a hard sell for me. The same thing with Plesac yesterday. I didn't think that he warranted that kind of ownership. And I feel the same way about Cal Quantrill. Are you on the same page as me, Terry? Are you gonna try to talk me into rostering this shitty pitcher?
No, I'm very much on the same page. I don't think if I had any shares of Plesac, it was less than 5 yesterday. I just did not go there, and I'm not really inclined to go to here to Cal Quantrill. Projects out under 20 FanDuel points in my model. Just doesn't strike anybody out. Like you said, 16% strikeout rate, a 4.50 xFIP, an 8.1% swinging strike rate, 24.4% CSW. Those are well below average numbers in terms of generating swinging strikes or even just throwing strikes. 2.97% home run rate is fine. His hard hit numbers are all right. He could go out there and have a good game against this team. Like you said, they're historically bad, at least in the last 10, 15 years against right-handed pitching across the board in everything that we care about. But I don't like going to bad teams or bad pitchers in just because of one factor. Like I was saying it all last week with when the Diamondbacks and Rockies were playing in Coors. I don't necessarily want to run with the field to bad teams just because they're in a good ballpark. And it kind of came through. It worked out basically every night. They scored a few runs, but they weren't really required any of those nights. And I feel the same way about Quantrill here. Like, it's not enough of a reason. There's not enough on that hook for me to really go with all the field here. If he was 2-3% owned, I might be saying, yeah, grab 5-8% of Cal Quantrill, easy enough to double up the field, whatever, but not there. And the price, especially 8,300 on FanDuel, I don't think that's cheap enough. I don't trust Cal Quantrill 8,300 even against this Tigers team. Not that that's really leading me into Tiger shares on the other side.
No. Like, so on a slate of this size, I don't really think there's a need to go to that kind of leverage, but no interest in Quantrill for me on FanDuel, especially at that kind of price tag and the ownership he's picking up. But like you said, it doesn't mean that I'm going to be landing on the Tigers for this slate either. Actually, let me rerun my lineups with everything in and see if I do get to the Tigers. I know before I wasn't getting to Detroit at all. I assume that's still going to be the case. But now going through the pitchers, we've talked about some of the popular guys, Cal Quantrill. I think Jordan Montgomery at only $6,900. This is the same thing we had with Montgomery the other day, where I can't remember what his price point was in his last start, but it was right around the same mark. It was either like 68 or 7,000 or something. Mm-hmm. He pitched fairly well, and the price didn't move at all on DraftKings. So I think he's a good SP2 option. If the choice is Jordan Montgomery at 6,900 against the Rockies or Cal Quantrill at 7,000, it's going to be Montgomery for me all day. We've been projected considerably better, and then just the ownership isn't all that much different. But if you're looking to get different, saving money at pitcher, is there any option that really stands out to you above all the others, Terry?
So I think it is Monty. That's the spot that I want to target here. He's drawing a little bit of attention because he's 6,900 on that DK slate at 23.5% ownership. I do like him at 8,700. It's a higher price on FanDuel, but I don't really care because it's pushing all the popularity away. 6.6% owned over there. I just think he's a good pitcher who I trust to get through a fairly clean game against a pretty weak lineup. They're a little bit better against lefties than they are against righties, but we're still talking about a lineup, an active roster that creates runs exactly at league average, ranks 18th for run creation against lefties, 14th with a 160 ISO, 25th with a 2.37% home run rate. So not a ton of home run risk for Monty here. And he's decent at limiting the home run. He's decent at limiting hard hit, 35.6% hard hit, 2.94% home run rate on the season. So if he can find a few bonus strikeouts for me, and they're decently good at avoiding the strikeout, that's where the old rubber's going to meet the road. 20.1% strikeout rate ranks 8th in baseball for the Rockies. If he finds me 2 or 3 extra strikeouts tonight on top of what, the normal expectation might be, I think he has a nice game for us here and could be that guy who sneaks through and gives you that similar start to the Scherzers and Rodons, as long as they're not shooting up into like the 60s, FanDuel scoring wise. So I do like the spot for Monty there. We can pull up the old pitching tool here and see who else rates outs. Where we've got Quantrill, I don't really disagree with. I don't really agree with. I don't like the Lauer spot. He's also not cheap.
Yeah.
German Marquez is kind of interesting on talent, but going up against that Cards lineup, I don't know that I really want to tangle with it. For 6,700 and not that much ownership, you can grab a few shares, but I don't think I would even press that out to like the 10% that the field's getting. I think Kluber might be the next guy, but he's even not that inexpensive at 88. So there's not a lot of, there's not really a great pool of super cheap pitching. Rich Hill, actually, 61 against Pittsburgh. That's probably a decent target. I just mentioned before how he's not coming through my model like the other pitchers have against Pittsburgh recently, but I think it's 61 going up against that lineup for 3.9% ownership. That's interesting as a DK value play.
This is how you know the pitching is shitty on the low end, Terry. These are pitchers that are picking up double-digit ownership on DK, and I'll put the Cal Quantrill one aside because I don't think he's good, except it's a matchup against the Tigers. I get why people are going there, right? You could justify it to some extent. German Marquez, you just mentioned him. Double-digit ownership for German Marquez against the Cardinals, considering how hard they are to strike out, right? Like, we don't see Marquez very typically at double-digit ownership. Domingo German, how shitty has this guy been this year? He's got 13% projected ownership, and then Cole Ragans, I'll have to look up what his numbers have been so far this year. But this is also a guy who's 27 years old, totally unranked prospect, didn't really have all that much, or 24 years old, unranked prospect, didn't have all that much success in the minor leagues. 2 MLB starts so far. 4.82 ERA, 5.16 expected ERA, 7.29 FIP. Zips has him projected for a 5.68 ERA the rest of the year, and he's projected for 13% ownership right now. So this is the quality of pitchers we're dealing with that people are getting to, and I can't advocate for any of those guys at double-digit ownership. It is a good matchup for Ragans against the Oakland A's, But I almost view it as the same spot as yesterday when Oakland was going up against Arahara. If I have to pick one side of that game, I'm going to go with the Oakland A's offense because I don't think there's a massive difference between Ragans and Arahara. These are just two not major league caliber pitchers.
Yeah, totally agree there. I wasn't happy about getting to some Oakland yesterday or where they ranked in my home run model yesterday, and it's the same story today. Just when you, even against a terrible team like that, when you throw up a nothing pitcher, a quad A type guy, which I think is where Ragans is going to fall over the course of his career, it just makes even that team look okay and look playable. So I'll have some A's. I won't have any Ragans. I'm trying, as you were talking there, I was looking at it a little bit more, and I think I'm selling myself even more on this Rich Hill spot. Just heads up against Quantrill, let's say, on the DK slate. I don't really see any reason that Quantrill should be going off at 25.2% ownership for his $7,000 price tag against Detroit, while Rich Hill is at 3.9% for 6,100 against Pittsburgh. It's every bit as good a matchup for Rich Hill as it is for Cal Quantrill. Rich Hill's probably a better pitcher. Their numbers this year are almost identical to one another. I don't see any daylight between those two spots, except for on that ownership, with Rich Hill coming in less than a fifth as owned. He ranks out worse in our tool. He ranks out in terms of the Stokastic tool as having about a half the probability of being a top two, but for a fifth of the ownership and a much lower price, that gets more interesting to me now. In my numbers, he drops down. He's like I said, he's middle of the board, but he's a little bit above like Zach Davies against San Francisco. Let's say I'd rather have Rich Hill against Pittsburgh. I'd certainly rather have him than Cal Quantrill, Rosny Contreras, Herman Marquez. I think I'm selling myself a little bit more on this Rich Hill spot now.
So here's where I'm going to push back against you. But I guess if I had to pick between Rich Hill and Cal Quantrill, I would side with Rich Hill as well, just because of the reduction in ownership, 3% compared to 24% for Quantrill. How many innings do you have Rich Hill projected for?
That's what I was just pulling up, because he's thrown 68, 58 in his last two. It was in
and by the way, do you know how many strikeouts he combined for in those two starts?
One.
Yeah, one strikeout total in those two starts, and 68 and 58 pitches. It's hard for me to expect him to go deep into games for that standpoint. So over Cal Quantrill, I guess, for ownership reasons, but ultimately it's kind of a no on both of them for me.
Yes, and that's perfectly fair to say no to both of them. I think that's totally reasonable here. I'm just thinking, if I can get 75 pitches out of him for the price, 5 innings, maybe less of a play on FanDuel where you need that quality start. But the 61 on DK, I think that's still probably viable, even with 75 pitches, if that's what he's got in his bag today. And I mean, the 68, the last time out, he had given up 4 earned runs. He allowed 7 hits, didn't strike out anybody, only walked 1, but that's also against Atlanta. Yeah, it's thinner because of the innings. You're right. But I think it's still at least viable on the DK slate, like I said.
Yeah, I'm just looking at some of these cheap pitchers and trying to figure out if I had to roster one of these guys who is sub 10% owned, that's cheap, where would I go? That's tough. It's tough. Like I could see why you land on Rich Hill, because you look at the other options and it's like, what do we see here? Roundsy Contreras. I like the arm talent there. I think that he's a pitcher with some long-term upside, but another guy who, he hasn't pitched since July 7th. Let me see. What did Contreras do in his rehab starts? How many innings did he go? I can't imagine he's going to pitch all that deep into the game unless he was, absurdly stretched out in those minor league starts. So let me look at his game log, see what we got here. I think ultimately, though, I'm probably just going to be rolling with the chalk-it pitcher and just going more different at offense. So, last rehab start for him. So he actually made a bunch of rehab starts. So 4 rehab starts, 2 innings, 3 innings, 4 innings, 5 innings. I think they're going to be cautious with him bringing him back, though. So I think we're probably looking at 4 or 5 innings from Contreras. That's going to be a no for me. I don't like.
I mean, there's also no reason for them to push him. It's just a development situation. Like, it's not like they're competing for anything. So I agree with that. I think it would be a little bit short.
What happened to this? Did somebody join and the message automatically got retracted? What happened? I'm just looking at the messages that come up, like the super chat messages, where it says, "Look, welcome to Team Stokastic. Message retracted." What is this? Boy, he must have really disliked. Here's what happened, Terry. Here's how unhappy he was with your Rich Hill take. He joined as a member. He heard you say you liked Rich Hill, and he was immediately like, "All right, refund. I don't want this anymore.
I'm out of here. Back to Fantasy Labs. That's it."
Yeah, he's off to somewhere else. But Not in our YouTube chat, apparently.
Oh,
See,
well,
I
he'll be
can't.
missed.
I can't really advocate for any of these super low-owned pitchers. I think I'm going to be more playing the chalk, get overweight to Jordan Montgomery. There's some offenses I really like to differentiate with. So we'll talk on that in a second. But anything else you have as a talking point from pitchers here?
No, I think we went through most of the guys. We didn't sell Tony Gonsolin all that hard, and I do think that he's in a decent spot here. Projects out pretty well for me. Not overly high owned, 8.7% for 10K on DK, 1.6 for 10-3 on FanDuel. It's an interesting enough spot. He's got a 23.5% strikeout rate going up against the Brewers lineup that's got some strikeouts in it. You've got to dodge around some power, but he's only allowed a 2.46% home run rate, a 32.7% hard hit, 5.9% barrel. So I think Gonsolin, not that he's, in any way cheap, but as a differentiator that you got to pay for, I think he's interesting in that spot.
Yeah, I think that all makes sense. By the way, shout out to our guy Malakar, who gifted a membership out there. So we had the one guy leave, but now Malakar gifting another subscription.
It was Guitar Man who was the one that said it left, but he didn't leave because he still has his badge. So.
Oh, all right. So YouTube glitching. What can you do? All right, Terry, you're absolved from your Rich Hill take. Nobody got that upset by it and asked for an immediate refund.
Until somebody plays it anyway.
Yeah. But anyway, shout out to Malakar. Appreciate you giving out the gift. And then, of course, for people who are just joining now, Malakar just had a grandson born, Cameron, which is very exciting. Very excited for him. Also, guys, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. And we're sponsored today by OddsShopper, the easiest way to find sports bets. If you guys are betting on sports and you're not checking out OddsShopper, you're doing yourself a disservice, because not only is it free to use, and not only do we have our own player projections up here, but it's most importantly going to tell you where the best line is. You don't want to be looking through, if you play on a bunch of different sports books, hand looking through 6, 7 different books, whatever it may be, to try to find where the best line is. This is just going to tell you where the best line is for the day. And then we could also use that to try to find some bets. So one thing that stands out to me, Terry, the over-under for strikeouts tonight on Framber Valdez is 6.5. For a guy who's not really a crazy high swing and miss pitcher and is going up against a White Sox offense that's better against lefties than righties, we have Valdez projected for 5.2 strikeouts. Where are you landing on his K projection? Because 6.5 does seem pretty steep for me over at Sportsbooks.
Yeah, let me see where I've got him projected. That definitely sounded high when you said it. Let's see. I've got him going under that. I've got him slightly over 6, though. I'm actually surprised it's even that high. So maybe it's a sneaky good strikeout spot, and we're just not realizing why here, because I wouldn't have thought it would be that high by any means. He is 22.1% on the year this year, so it's up a little bit. He was 21.9% last year. Swinging strikes are up a half a percentage point, but it's not like he's made a major jump or anything like that. And like you said, White Sox a little bit better against left-handed pitching, and it's a more complete version of their lineup now. So yeah, I mean, maybe he gets there, but I'd be more inclined to bet on him getting, a bunch of ground balls than strikeouts.
All right, there we go. Now it came through the more amended version. Guitar Man, thank you. He also gifted some memberships out in the Discord. We appreciate you. And now, oh boy, we got Ryan Rennebaum. He's now a member, who says that now, because he's a member, I have to touch. It says, touch my camera through the fence, brother. I was actually going to reach out and touch it, but sometimes I do that and it throws the whole camera out of focus and then it ruins the rest of the show. But yeah, not going to do that. But it's some other time when nobody else is around
with his mind.
Yeah. So something that people don't know, when it's only me and the members at night, that's when we could touch ourselves through the fence and whatnot. But right now, not how everybody else is watching.
Ehrenberg After Dark. Be here at 2 a.m. everybody.
Oh yeah, we're bringing back the late night shows. Actually, we do have a late night show today. I was thinking about our programming for a second. We do have PGA Live Before Lock tonight. So if you guys, after the show is over, you want to catch out some PGA analysis, because tournament's starting tomorrow, you like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, stick around and watch some of those guys. Check out the PGA show. And then, all right. So Tyler's saying that is a Tom Segura bit. I wasn't aware of okay. So that was Ryan's reference. It was a Tom Segura reference. I wasn't aware of that from the podcast.
All right. I didn't catch it, but all right.
All right. So that's
we got
what
somebody
it's referring to. That's what it's referring to. Doesn't mean we can't touch ourselves through the camera at some other point, though.
Yeah.
Stack time. You ready to talk about some stacks, Terry?
Absolutely.
All right. So believe it or not, our guy Seth in our premium Discord channel, he asked a relevant baseball question, which almost never happens. It's almost all trolling, making fun of EMAC. but he wants to know what is the best pivot on the slate off of the Texas Rangers. And I like this question quite a bit because we have the Rangers projected to be crazy popular today against Adam Oller. The Rangers going to refresh the ownership to make sure that I'm looking at the most recent run. They were, at least before, by far the most popular offense on the slate, and that is still the case. On DraftKings, as a team, projected for 16% ownership. On FanDuel as a team, also projected for 16% ownership. They're the only team over 10% owned on both DraftKings and FanDuel today. I don't really like the ownership on Texas. I presume you do not either, Terry, because a lot of times we're on the same page with these kind of things. We look at some of the same data. So if you're looking to go underweight to the field with the Rangers, who's the team that stands out the most to you? But first, are you looking to be underweight to Texas?
Probably. I mean, that's my goal, and that's how I expect it to come out when I put it in here. They are, like I said, up toward the top of the show, though, the only team that's really, smashing out through the top of the old home run model here. So I expect I will have some of them, but I don't want to be at the Fields level. The 16% on DK, they are 16% for all intents and purposes on FanDuel as well. And there's just some good teams in at least decent matchups. Love the Dodgers going up against Eric Lauer at 6.9% at the top of the board. That's an easy one to get to. Top of the board on the DK slate as well. Slightly more popular, but they're slightly positively leveraged. Nice stack score there. The Red Sox, the Mets, the Astros are all sitting right there near the top of the board on both sites. It's just easy to go to good teams in these spots when a mediocre team in Texas is getting all that attention. Like, let the field get excited by the shiny object. It could come through. It might. There's nothing. They look very, very good, like I said. But when I can get Red Sox, Astros, Mets, Dodgers against Eric Lauer, Rusney Contreras, Michael Kopech, and Jake Odorizzi, Kopech's the best pitcher on that list, but you'll note that we didn't really talk about him when we were talking pitchers. Yeah, I think those are all good spots. I don't love my Yanks against Corey Kluber. You could definitely throw some Guardians against Daniel Norris in there, although they're getting a little bit of popularity and they're a little bit lower ranked. But that whole top half of the board is loaded with good alternatives to just going and overloading the Rangers with the field.
Yeah, for me, Adam Oller is terrible, right? If he's not the worst pitcher on the slate, it's because like Cole Ragans is comparably bad. It's not because there's somebody who's considerably worse than Adam Oller, but the Rangers don't have a good enough offense that I think they ever should be 16% owned on any single given slate. So I'm going to be looking elsewhere outside of the Rangers in terms of my stacks. Let me see. My last run.
A good way to put that in perspective while you're looking at that, Marcus Semien, who's drawing nearly 40% ownership on FanDuel. I mean, for one thing, he couldn't hit anything for the first 2 months of the season. He's still sitting at a 98 WRC plus. So you guys are all going to a guy who's 2% worse than average creating runs. He does have 19 stolen bases, 18 home runs now on the season, over 517 plate appearances. It's taken him a while to get to his numbers, and it's all in just the counting stats. Good for fantasy, but still only a 167 ISO. And like I said, the run creation has not been there. The next 5 hitters in the batting order have WRC pluses over 100 above average, but there's a couple small sample guys in there in Valora and Taveras. And, I do like Corey Seager and Adolis Garcia. Nate Lowe's okay, but everybody's going there. It's just difficult to get any separation when you go to that. And I don't love Semien as the most popular player on the slate.
I have 5% Ranger stacks right now. It's a number I feel pretty good about. They're in my, they're in the player pool for me. We have them with 8.5% top stack odds. And, that's still the 5th highest on the slate, but, it's not great for the way I build lineups. Teams are rarely going to look good when they're almost double the ownership of any other team on the slate and the 5th highest top stack odds. So I get it. They're fairly cheap. They're easy to fit in with the top pitchers everybody wants to get to, and Scherzer and Rodon. For cash games, load up on Texas, load up on Rodon, load up on Scherzer. Tournaments, though, like I said, 5% Rangers, so I'm about a third of the field. That's a mark I feel pretty good about. But if you could only roster one offense today, Terry, you're building one single lineup, because I know that's what a lot of people are doing in chat or in our Discord channel. They're only playing one. What would be your stack of choice if you were only going to be building one lineup?
Let's see here. Jumping back over the power index. Out of those good teams that we were just talking about from the top of the board, it looks like in my home run model, they rank Mets, Braves, Dodgers, and I would probably see them in that order. Let me go back and look at the popularity again. I'm just getting through my sort here now. With the Mets going up against Odorizzi at 7.4%, versus the slightly more popular Astros, 8.9%, slightly less popular Dodgers. So it would probably be Dodgers first for me up against Lauer, and the Dodgers, Mets, Astros in that order.
It's funny you bring that up because I have two lineups that I'm choosing in between for uploading for my single entry team. I'm in between the Mets and the Dodgers. Haven't figured out which one it is I want to go to, but those are my two most rostered offenses right now, the Dodgers and the Mets. So the spot for the Dodgers against Eric Lauer. Lauer got off to a great start to the season. He has really tailed off as of late. Early in the year, his fastball velocity was like 94.5 miles per hour, and he was nearly unhittable. He was having all these starts. He was really consistent, where he was looking really good. And I was thinking, not that he was going to win Cy Young or anything like that, but he felt to me like this year's version of Robbie Ray, a guy who kind of came out of nowhere to just be excellent and have a really strong season. And that just hasn't been the case as the season's gone on. You could see the numbers progressively getting worse. And now in the second half of the season, since the All-Star break, a 4.9 FIP for Eric Lauer, a 5.14 xFIP. But here's the real key for me also. That's just a really, really good indicator of a pitcher who's fallen off. First half of the season, 25.1% K rate. Second half of the season, 16.7% K rate. First half of the season, 7.8% walk rate. Second half, 11.5% walk rate. Across the board, everything looks bad. Who knows? Maybe he's nursing an underlying injury. Maybe it's just fatigue. You got a guy who's throwing way harder at the start of the season than he's ever thrown at another point in his career. Maybe that's something that's led to a dip in the second half of the year. I'm telling you though, a team you don't want to be struggling against when things are going south, it's the Dodgers. This is not the team to be going up against when you're in a bad way. So I'm stuck in between them or the Mets. I do like the Dodgers better overall, but the Mets are so low owned that I doubt anybody's going to be playing them in single entry. And I don't mind the matchup against Jake Odorizzi, another pitcher who just doesn't really generate a whole bunch of strikeouts and is a pitcher who in general, I haven't been as high on as the public, even when he was a serviceable pitcher. So he may have a 3.8 ERA this year, but a 4.71 xFIP. Once again, the strikeouts not there, only a 18.1% K rate, the lowest mark of his career. So those are the two I'm in between, but I am leaning a little bit towards the Dodgers right now.
Yeah, and I'm seeing them. They look very similar in terms of ownership on the DK slate. The Mets might be drawing slightly more popularity on the average, like through the whole lineup, but you get Mookie and Trey as the two most popular players overall between the two teams. And then on the FanDuel slate, the top four hitters on the Mets are all in double-digit ownership. So I think maybe FanDuel-wise, I might lean a little bit into the Dodgers side of it just on ownership, but I'll have plenty of Mets. And then DK, I think it's a little bit more of a coin toss ownership-wise. But yeah, happy to take shares of either of these teams. Don't think much of either one of the pitchers. Odorizzi, targetable enough, allows sequencing, puts guys on, allows run creation, not hugely targetable for power, only a 32.1% hard hit over his 68 2/3 this year, 2.08 home run rate. Last year, 39.3% hard hit though, and 9.3% barrel in a bigger sample, 3.63% home run rate. So there is power available there. It's just not shined through like crazy this year. Up against Eric Lauer, 4.45% home run rate, allowed over 118 2/3 this year. Higher hard hit, higher barrel rate for a definitely very good hitting team in the Dodgers. So a lot of meat on the bone for both of those targets for sure.
Boy, nose pulling up in my lineups. A couple of one-offs are showing up a bunch for me right now as I'm trying to finalize my builds here. So just kind of want to point this out, and then we'll get back to talking about some of our favorite stacks. Just kind of curious what you think of some of these hitters here, Terry. So as a punt play over on DraftKings at catcher, Shea Lingellaris, I'm not positive I pronounced his name correctly, but I don't mind the spot for him going up against a pitcher in I forgot who was that was. I totally just had a brain fart here. So we have
Raggins.
Right, Raggins on the mound for. So a couple of reasons. I remember I got my thought process back now. So I don't think Raggins is good. We've talked about that before. He's 24 years old, unranked prospect, underwhelming results so far at the big league level. But then also he's somewhat popular because going up against Oakland. And this is why I kind of like getting to Oakland. Just like yesterday, I like going up against I like getting them for value against Arahara. So Oakland as value plays, like I don't think there's a whole bunch of need to play them a lot as 5-man stacks, but I'm getting to a lot of them as one-offs. And Langellaris as a min price catcher over on ZK, that shows up for me. And then another one, Oswaldo Cabrera in the middle of the Yankees lineup, also at the flat min on DraftKings. These are two guys that are popping up most meaningfully for me as one-off plays. Do you have an issue with either of that?
Not really. Langoliers, anytime you can get a min price catcher on DK, I definitely think there's value in just doing that. Particularly when we mentioned the Athletics are popping up a little bit in terms of stacking. You've also got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players in that Athletics lineup at the dead minimum price on the DK slate, which is pretty amazing. I don't know that I've ever seen that before. So they're very easy to build with. He should definitely be a part of your plans if you're going there. Neither of these players are on the FanDuel slate, by the way, so you don't have to worry about it over there. And then on the Yankee side of things, Oswaldo Cabrera, decent, okay, kind of a prospect, kind of a placeholder guy in the middle infield until the real middle infield prospects get here. But they called him up for a reason. I can see playing him. He's hitting 6 for the Yankees in Yankee Stadium. I don't see a reason not to go there for 2,000 other than maybe the fact that he's getting 11% ownership. Should he be the 3rd highest owned Yankee? Well, with this Yankee lineup, I guess Glaber and Rizzo should probably be a little bit more popular than him. But for price, makes sense.
He's min price, and we're all trying to pay up for pitcher today. So that's kind of where it makes sense to me. I mean, I'm just running my lineups, and that's who kind of came out.
And he's going to help you get those, lineups that also have Rizzo and Judge both in them at 5,200 and 6,200. So he makes sense for stacks. He makes sense.
Yeah, if I get to a bunch of a guy who's a one-off, unless it's somebody who's, just totally terrible at min price, these guys bad potentially, but are they really going to destroy my lineups at 2K on DraftKings? Probably not. So I'm fine with having them in a whole bunch of lineups as one-offs, enabling me to pay up for pitchers. If it lets me get from, a Zach Plesac or a middling pitcher up to a Scherzer or Rodon, I'm okay with the trade-off and okay with the chance that these guys might go 0 for 4. I like the kind of upgrade it allows me to make a pitcher today.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got to kind of scrimp and save for all those pennies for these expensive pitchers if that's the route we're going. So it does definitely make sense. And like I said, it's limited when they don't necessarily connect. A guy at 2K doesn't have to go out and hit you 2 home runs to help be a part of a slate winning lineup. He can contribute a couple hits, a couple runs scored, a stolen base, whatever. It doesn't have to be a monster game from a guy like that.
All right. So let's look at some of the other stacks, Terry. And how are you doing on your lineups?
Good. I'm just working on tweaking some of these stacks that we're talking about to make sure that I'm actually getting to them as we're doing the conversation and doing the old sort here. Sometimes it kind of falls by the wayside, but with a little bit of time, I can move things around and make sure that I'm actually getting. I forget who it was the other day, but we talked somebody up and then I didn't have it. And I was just like so mad at it was the Dodgers the other night in the Will Smith spot specifically. Killed me.
The one that annoys me the most is so I had this the other day where I really like the Orioles as a stack. I forget who the pitcher was that they were going up against, and they got off to a really hot start. And I had other things to do that night. So I'd gone out and I'm like, oh my God, look, the Orioles have scored all these runs really quick. My lineups must be killing. And I'm looking like, oh, I'm only doing okay. I wonder why it's so, just kind of meh. And I look at my single entry lineup, but I just uploaded the wrong thing, made a CSV error, which I'll do. It happens like once a month or so when I'm on shows. But I get really just diligent about it and really making sure that I'm uploading the right one. So just did that right now, made sure that my Dodger stack ended up being my single entry stack and then everything else falling into line. So that is what I've landed on here for. Oh, there we go. You know what's funny? The YouTube chat knew immediately which slate it was. Yes, it was the Orioles game against Kikuchi where the Orioles did not have that much ownership. And I really liked them for low ownership. And Makes sense. Crushed him early. And then my single entry stack that day, I think it ended up being the Astros, which was not at all who I wanted it to be. It was a CSV error, and I was very upset with myself. But
yeah, I ended up with that was Saturday, right? I think that was Saturday. That was the day I came out of it saying, wow, I had a great show. And then my lineups didn't go anywhere. And that was, I think I had a bunch of Orioles looking good early. And then everything that was with them just kind of fell off the side of the cliff there. So I was with you on that, but because of different reasons. Yeah. Always the worst, screwing up the old CSV. I have not had a tragic one so far this year. But knock on wood that I continue.
I mean, if you're Adam Scher and you upload the wrong CSV, it just means you're locked to have a 6-figure night. Unfortunately, I'm not always that lucky. Although it did happen to me a couple of years ago with NBA where I uploaded the wrong CSV and had a couple players locked in that I otherwise wouldn't have had locked in, and also ended up winning a GPP on FanDuel that day. So sometimes it does work out. Sometimes rather be lucky than good. But in terms of your stacks now, we've got a few minutes left to go here. If you guys haven't done it yet, like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Really helps support us, and it takes 1 second. We appreciate it. It's easy to do. What are the stacks that you are landing on the most we have not yet talked about?
The Tampa Bay Rays are coming up quite a bit from me. They were fairly highly ranked in my home run model here. Let's see, they were sitting actually third in my home run model, going up against Domingo and Mon. 16.5% strikeout rate for Domingo, a 45.5% hard hit, 3.88% home runs. That's over 23 2/3 in 5 starts. It's a little bit unfair to cite the short sample. So let's look at 98 1/3 from last year, 4.15% home run rate, a 23.9% strikeout rate, which is definitely better, 14.4% induced swinging strikes. He was getting those swinging strikes. He was walking fewer guys, allowing fewer opportunities, and yielding similar power last year, slightly less on the hard hit. I think he's pretty targetable here. You can go to the Brandon Laus of the world. Certainly Randy Arozarena has some upside, but not because he owns Yankee Stadium or whatever was being said in the chat earlier. Harold Ramirez, Ji-Man Choi. There's some good bats in this Rays lineup, so I don't mind getting to some shares of them, even against my Yanks. Jose Siri, kind of interesting at 2,100 on the FanDuel slate. He's hitting 8th, 2,500 on DK for 1% ownership. He's just a guy who's got the power and speed tools, and he's one of those guys who can create fantasy points. He has not done it very much at the major league level at all in his short career, and definitely not this year. 3 home runs, 9 stolen bases, but 188, 242, 295. But he's that kind of play that can get frisky down at the bottom of the lineup. And if he's in your lineup and he does do that, that's going to be a differentiator. The only real popularity in this lineup, as usual, is on Brandon Lau.
Yeah, it's let's see, where am I on the Tampa Bay Rays? So they are currently projected for, I like them quite a bit too. So I'm well overweight to the field on the Rays. I'm right around 10%. They're only projected for 3.5%. So yeah, I'm with you there while I'm looking through. Who are some of the individual hitters I get the most to from Tampa Bay over on DK? David Peralta, Brandon Lau, Arozarena. Yeah, I think this is a good team to target as well. So yeah, looking through my exposures, this is also a team that I like quite a bit. I think they're going way overlooked by the field based on where I ended up in the CSV I just uploaded. So yeah, we're on the same page there. I'm just going to back up everything you say. I don't really have too much else to add to that. Looking through the other teams that I ended up getting to. All right, let me take off my stack filter so I'm not just looking at the Rays. Oakland A's, talked about them before, though. I think that they are sensible. Another team that I'm getting to here is the St. Louis Cardinals against German Marquez. And this is twofold. Number one, Marquez is actually projected for double-digit ownership, which I don't think should be the case against the St. Louis Cardinals because the Cardinals hardly ever strike out. And, the Cardinals are a team that I really don't like to play all that often against right-hand pitching. It's more of a team that I like to be on when they're going up against lefties. But with that said, Marquez has struggled this year, and typically his struggles come at home at Coors Field, which is totally sensible. Why would we ever expect him to pitch well at Coors Field? He's kind of sucked on the road this year also, which is concerning. He has a 4.52 FIP on the road this year and a 4.42 xFIP. So in the past, at least, you would see his stuff and be like, oh, okay, he's going to be good away from Coors Field. This year, he has a 20.1% K rate at home, 17% on the road, 5.9% walk rate at home, 10.9% on the road. The wheels have just totally come off when he's away from Coors Field. He's not been great at Coors Field either. A lot of that's due to park factors, but still on the road, it's not great either. So I think he's a targetable pitcher. And, it's a Cardinals offense that's also not really picking up that much ownership, 4% on DK. So that's a team that I'm getting to. Are they making into your lineups at all, Terry? And if not, is there any other one team you want to shout out before we do some home run picks and get out of here?
The Cards are getting in there, but slightly less than I would normally expect. Definitely always a major target for me against lefties, like you're saying. But against a guy like German Marquez, this year's version anyway, I'm surprised I'm not getting a little bit more of them because it is a lineup I do like to get to a decent amount of the time. That said, the Lars Nootbaar leadoff, Brendan Donovan 2-hitter version of this lineup, maybe not the best. No Tyler O'Neill in the lineup tonight. So not the best version of their lineup. So maybe that's having an impact. But that does also put a lot of very cheap hitters around Goldschmidt and Arenado that are at least serviceable. Like Donovan's having a nice year, 280, 395, 368, 26% better than average creating runs. Just don't ask him to hit you a home run. Nolan Gorman, certainly a targetable bat in there. So still some bats that I like in that lineup, but On the DK side, maybe they're around more around appropriate ownership in my mind, where you can be there, be efficient with the field, be over, be under, and it doesn't really damage you in any direction. So I'm fine with going over. On FanDuel, they're a little bit lower on than that, so maybe I can target them a little bit more over there.
Yeah, I mean, I think both slates or both
Definitely
sites,
worth
they
it,
they do make some semblance of sense. But all right, let's
it's another spot where you're just getting ahead of the field on a good team. So we talk about that all the time. Anytime I have that opportunity, I am happy to take it.
All right. Time for Dong picks. Also, shout out Teddy Wayman left us a super chat. Hey guys, appreciate the work you do. Keep it up. Thank you. And we're not that far away from slate locking here. So, you know, we've got to give out home run picks, and then it's going to be time for Ryan and I to touch each other through the fence to the camera. Like we got stuff to do. But home run pick, Terry. Who's standing out to you? Who's going to be your Dong pick of the day, which also ties into the fence and whatnot?
Let me jump over to the old home run model here. Ooh, actually, something's screwy. Let me fix the how this is sorted. Do you have one that you can throw out there real quick while I'm trying to figure out what the hell's going on with the display on this?
Yeah. So yesterday I was pretty happy because my home run pick was Vlad, and not only did he homer, he did it immediately. He was like the first player to do anything on the entire slate. So I was like, oh, cool. That's a relief. My lineups are off to a good start, and ended up being a good night from there.
Yeah, that was definitely a good one to get last night. He was the top of my my board as well last night.
All right, so I'm gonna go with Mookie against Eric Lauer. I talked before about the merits of fading Lauer. He's really struggled in the second half of the year. Walk rate is way up, strikeout rate is way down, giving a lot more hard contact, a lot more runs. The Dodgers, this is the team I landed on for single entry. It's the team I'm getting the most exposure to. So Mookie, there's the home run pick for me. It would really fit in well with my lineups. And, you know, yesterday when I'm going through the players, what I really tried to prioritize was not just who I thought would hit home run, but who would benefit me the most for the night. So hoping to carry that over for today. Mookie bets. That's the Dong pick.
I like that. I think that's a smart way to do it. And I'm going to ape that. I'm going to take Mr. Brandon Lau out of the Tampa Bay Rays, who I just mentioned, getting quite a bit of those guys, quite a bit of him. And he's popular, like I said, but he's not in that 30% Brandon Lau for no good reason when nobody else is getting to any of the other Rays kind of a night. So I think it's a spot where he's a little bit more playable than a lot of nights. So I'm going to have quite a bit of them. And that's my home run call for the day.
That would also be one that would benefit my lineups quite a bit today. So Rays stack, you like them, I like them, so I could get on board with that. Other than that, guys,
that said, very top of the board is occupied by a lot of those Texas Rangers, just to be totally clear for the people out there who are going to the show.
I mean, if I also wanted to just, I'd be like, oh, Aaron Judge, if I just want to give out, if I just want to give out the statistically most likely answer, but we're not soft around here. We take some stands. Not that Mookie was some crazy off the board pick, but it's not one of the more obvious ones.
Mookie, who?
And it's not like he's all that popular on the slate either. We've got Mookie projected for, let's see, what's Mookie's ownership projection at? 11%. So it's modest. All right, guys, that does it for us. Thank you very much for watching. If you haven't done it yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Most importantly, good luck tonight. Don't make any CSV screw ups. I'll see you back here tomorrow.
I almost made one of these.